Okay, look at that. I'll call the order of Sparks City Council meeting of May 13th, 2019 with a roll call, please.
Mayor Smith,
Here.
Council Members Abbott,
Here.
Lawson, Anderson,
Here.
Bybee, Dare, City Attorney Adams, City Manager Cruz.
Here.
We have a quorum, thank you.
Okay, if you all please stand for invocation speaker, it's Bishop Angelo Carvajal from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Welcome, Bishop.
Thank you. Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity that we get to meet together and talk about the city business. We thank the Father for the blessings that we receive. Thank you for families and ask you to bless them and protect them. Bless all those who are serving in the military too, that they can come back home in their due time. And we ask you at this time to bless us and bless all those that are partaking on these decisions today, that they can be wise and they can be illuminated to choose the right and to be guided by thee. We thank you, Father, for these things and ask thee for these things and these blessings in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Bishop. If you remain standing, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Dare, would you lead us?
Sure. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'm going to open up the public comment period. Anybody in the audience wishing to speak, would you please fill out a card? And you have 3 minutes when your name is called. Our first name is Ellie Pereiros. Come on down, Ellie. Welcome.
Hi.
Grab a seat, and we understand you're going to do a recording. Okay.
Just start it off. Okay, like it is 8 o'clock at night. And I called okay, that's how loud it gets. Hi, my name is Eliana Preos. I live at 431 and a half 7th Street. I live between Pyramid Highway and 7th, between D and E. In the front, there's the Church of God, and behind it, it's the Fertility Order of Eagles.
Okay.
I've tried to get their help multiple times. From my understanding is they lease out the hall, and it's sometimes Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. That was how loud it gets, even with my windows closed. It's very disruptive in my life. Sorry, I'm really nervous. And I've lived at that residence for July 25th, it'll be 3 years. I've had a broken windshield. I pick up trash. It's just nonstop. And on their website, if you look, there was another lady, I guess, that lived maybe in the house. I have an open field on my right and an open field on my left, and then I'm in the back. Sometimes I can't even get in and out of my driveway. There's always trash left around. I don't even know how many times I've called the police. I think it's a waste of their time when there's other things they could be doing. And I think that the gentleman who runs this place and gets money to lease it out should be held accountable for it. And just on that note, with everything with that has to do, I know the city of Sparks doesn't have a noise ordinance law. So it's like a disturbing the peace kind of thing where you have to call the police. And even the gentleman who owns it, or whose name, I got this paper from Ryan about a little over a year ago, kind of been dealing with this. I have officers' cards and numbers, and it's just really disruptive in my life, and I really wish somebody would help do something about it or address the situation with them. It's supposed to be a community-based, like they're their community. I've tried to talk to the guy, and he's not very nice.
Who's the guy?
The name on this is Wayne E. Smith.
No relation. Is that in the parking lot with the Pyramid Vet, right in that area there?
Well, the Church of God actually sits on the front part of the property,
Okay.
and then behind the church, there's the hall. And it's just like,
Okay. Thank you. You know, Neil, I don't know what we can do, but maybe,
and I have
I will look into it. I will talk with staff and see what we've done, and we'll see if there's other things to do, and we'll be in contact.
okay, we'll be in contact with you.
thank you very much.
Thanks, Ellie. Have a good day. Thank you. Shirley Birchwinger, come on down, Shirley. Welcome. It's been a while.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council members. For the record, my name is Shirley Birchinger. In August of 2017, the Reno Gazette-Journal had an article about naming schools that were going to be built and asked if anyone wanted or knew of anyone to name a school after. Being a citizens advocate for many years, I started a campaign to have a school named after an extraordinary man who was the first principal of Lincoln Park School here in Sparks and served as principal for 24 years. His name was Nick Poulakidis, and he died of a massive heart attack in 1981 while attending a PTA conference in Ely, Nevada, which was near where he was born. He had been forgotten for 37 years by the school district, but not by his former teachers and staff, and that is why I'm here today. I'm not one of his former teachers, but I have learned since we were successful in getting the school named for him in South Meadows that for now gone on 18 years, his former teachers and staff have met every month for a luncheon honoring him. I recently met and had lunch with this group, and I am so impressed that they have never forgotten the principal that they all loved and respected. They are a very special group, and I think the City Council should honor them in some way. What dedication, and I doubt that any other principal has been so honored. When we met at the first naming committee meeting, only one gentleman on the committee was old enough to even have heard of Nick Poulakidis. But his former teachers and others in the group that spoke about Nick brought him to life. And he was chosen #1 in both of the 2 naming committee meetings and was voted unanimously by the Board of Trustees in November 2017. His dear widow, who is now 96 years of age, is suffering from dementia. And we are so happy that she at least knew that a school was named for her husband. She's in failing health. Excuse me. And I don't know if she'll be around. I hope this city council, I'm sorry, will consider honoring these former teachers and staff for their dedication. Thank you for listening. And if anyone has any question, they can contact me. The clerk has my name and phone number, and I left an article with her about Nick Poulakidis. What a wonderful person he was. Thank you.
thanks, Shirley. Okay, next speaker needs no introduction, Marcy Coopersmith. Come bounce down here, Marcy.
Got some really nice guys here.
Yeah.
I'm a cougar, it's okay.
Calm down, calm down.
And her husband's in the audience.
I'm
Okay,
Andrea
Oh.
Delto. I came down with Marcy. I'm a Sparks employee and also on the Sparks Senior Advisory Committee.
And I'm Marcy Cooper-Smith on the Sparks Senior Citizen Advisory Committee. And both Andrea and I are here today just to thank Community Relations Manager Julie Dool for the phenomenal job she did once again in helping promote the Older Americans events that we're having in Sparks this year. So we just wanted to state for the record how thrilled we are that she's always there to help us when we need promotions for our senior events, and we had some really cool events happening this month for Older Americans Month.
And I'd also like to thank Julie. She's been very helpful in working with us to try to get an email list together so that we could get all our information out to the seniors of Sparks.
Thank you, Julie.
Well, we're lucky to have Julie Bellamy. Thank you. Good job, Julie. You want to take a picture of yourself?
Selfie.
Selfie. Come on, Julie, you can do it.
In front of all of us, though.
Thanks, Marcy. Next speaker is Kathleen Shoup. Come on down, Kathleen. Welcome.
Good afternoon, you all. I'm part of the Save Wild Creek Bunch, as you well know, and I'm here to address you about some issues that we found. You're looking at the reports that were given you by the engineers that state that everything seems to be okay in the way of building the road and all, but the numbers are off. Originally, the school district came out and said, well, there's going to be about 2,000 students, 2,500 students, 2,500 students. And now, because I'm thinking that it has to do with restrictions on the roads that they're building, they have reduced that number to 2,125. And so now the roads are going to fit into their little paradigm of action. But Mr. Eschert back there, he said at one of the meetings recently that there's going to be 3,000 students at that school. 3,000. It's in public record that he said that. So these roads that they're proposing are not going to be able to handle the traffic that is going to be a result of that school being built on that corner, that area of Sullivan and North McCarran and, of course, El Rancho. The traffic study also concluded that Wedekind Road, north of McCarran Boulevard, is not going to be expected to see additional traffic or impact. However, it will, even if the students are coming from Sun Valley and Spanish Springs. The teachers and the staff, they're all going to be using those roads. And Wedekind Road has become a real shortcut that people have used ever since they did the improvements on the corner of Pyramid and McCarran. So even if the student population, when they open up, is only 2,500 or 2,100, whatever it is, the numbers are not going to hold. The student population is going to grow as a result of the growth of our whole area, and the impact is going to be enormous. We would sure like to see some parking structures, if you could, or if not that, if you could look into the water permeable asphalt perhaps for parking lots. And a big question is, why are Reno's students being sent to Sparks? And these are not really Reno's prime students, are they? I mean, let's face it. I hope that Sparks and Washoe County will maintain the remaining portion of the golf course. And even the Washoe County School District, they said that they would only be using portion of the golf course, even though they've acquired a larger portion, they're only going to use part of it. But I'd like to see that all maintained very well as a green space for the population to continue to use. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Kathleen. Next speaker is Tracy. Tracy, do you want to talk during public comment or 9.9? Public comment. All right, come on down, Tracy. Welcome.
Different being on the other side of that 3 minutes. So Mayor Smith, City Manager Neil Kreutz, and council members, thank you for having me today. First, I want to give a shout out. There's been a lot of help from our council members. Councilmember Dahir, Abbott, and Anderson, you helped deliver donuts on Teacher Appreciation Week, and there were millions of donuts. I drove by and picked up my donuts, so thank you for helping out with that endeavor. Councilmember Bybee, Safe and Healthy Schools Commissions, we've had meetings, so thank you for your support on that and working on this all together. Today, I'm here to talk about Wild Creek, and I know today is not the decision day, but unfortunately, I will not be able to attend on the 28th due to me having a school board meeting. So I wanted to come and share some thoughts with you. Thank you in advance for your careful consideration of this application. This project is so crucial for meeting the needs of our students and our community. Moving Hug High School students into a brand new facility, relieving overcrowding and providing room for growth at Spanish Springs High School, and rebuilding Hug's current campus into a career technical school to serve the whole county will truly reshape our education system. If you think about this in terms of a decade ago, the graduation rate for Washoe County School District was 50%. Today, we are 84.5, more kids on pathways to workforce development, more kids on the way to college career, more kids on the way for military. So the decisions we are making about encouraging what the future will look like for us. So we continue to appreciate Spark City's Council's diligent work with our staff to make this project even better on traffic and site design. I know Pete's here to have some discussion. It was 2 years ago this month that we came before you and other local governments to formally present a concept for this project. We are so thankful for the community input that led us to a better design, moving the school up the hill to minimize impacts to golf, neighbors, and traffic, where we could come up with a better decision for all. But ultimately, it comes back to the 64,000 students that we serve. What a phenomenal opportunity this is for them to create equitable outcomes for all kids that we serve. Around 1,400 students currently attend Hug and will get a brand new school. Over 2,000 students at Spanish Springs High School will see massive overcrowding and relief. And I don't know if you guys have walked the buildings of Reed or Spanish Springs during passing, but there are tons and tons and tons of kids. Yet their outcomes are even better than they have ever been, with both schools looking at hitting the 90% graduation rate this year. So as we look at overcrowding relief and we look at 1,000 students that we can move to CTE and Hug, we have one CTE building right now. We turn away thousands of kids from that. We have an opportunity to expand enrichment and outcomes for all kids with this move. So today I just want you to thank you for the hard work. It has not been easy for any of us, but at the end of the day, we have to do right by 64,000 kids because they are the future. They are the future members of the council, future superintendents, future principals, future workers, and that's what we're trying to build a better tomorrow for Reno and Sparks as a group of 64,000 students for Washoe County School District. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Tracy. Okay, anybody else in the audience wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council. Number 5, approval of the agenda. Mr. Dare?
I move to approve the agenda as it is written.
We have a motion, looking for a second. Mr. Abbott?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Okay, number 6, minutes. Consideration and possible approval of the minutes of the Sparks City Council meeting for April 22nd, 2019. Anybody want to pull anything or change it up? Charlene? I'm sorry, Ms. Bybee.
I would like to make a motion for approval. I'd like to move to approve the minutes of the Sparks City Council meeting for April 22nd, 2019.
Okay, we have a motion. Looking for a second, Mr. Anderson.
Second.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Okay, we're going to move on to number 7, announcements, presentations, recognition items, and items of special interest. 7.1, National Police Officers Week. Chief, come on down. And I'll read the proclamation, then you can say a few words, and then we'll get a picture. Okay. Whereas the Congress and the President of the United States have designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the week in which May 15th falls as National Police Week. And whereas the members of the law enforcement agency of Sparks, Nevada, play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of Sparks, and whereas the men and women of the law enforcement agency of Sparks, Nevada, unceasingly provide a vital public service. Now therefore, I, Ronald Lee Smith, Mayor of the City of Sparks, Nevada, call upon all citizens and upon all patriotic, civic, and educational organizations to observe the week of May 12th through May 18th, 2019 as National Police Officers Week, with appropriate ceremonies and observances in which all of our people may join in, commemorating law enforcement officers, past and present, who, by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities, have rendered a dedicated service to the communities, and in doing so, have established for themselves an enviable and enduring reputation for preserving the rights and securities of all citizens. I further call upon citizens of Sparks to observe May 15th, 2019 as Police Officers Memorial Day in honor of those law enforcement officers who, through their courageous deeds, have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community or have become disabled in the performance of their duties. And let us recognize and pay respect to the survivors of our fallen heroes.
Mayor Smith, members of council, I just want to say thank you for the men and women of the city of Sparks for this proclamation and the observance of this week. It's somewhat of a sad situation at the time that we remember the great work that police officers do is the week that we also recognize the ultimate sacrifice that many of them have given during the course of their actions. This week obviously is the national week here in Northern Nevada. We celebrate usually the first week of May, which many of you participated in many of the festivities of that week, including our own Hoff Memorial, to celebrate, to allow those family members that need to go back to Washington, D.C. to celebrate the National Police Week. This year is unfortunately unlike no other year that has been frequent over the course of my career, where we have actually added additional names to our own memorial here in Nevada with the passing of Correctional Officer Kyle Eng out of the Las Vegas Correctional Institute down there, where he died in the line of duty after a fight with an inmate suffering a major heart attack. We also added a National Park Service member who died in the line of duty back in the 1970s. Overall, in 2019, there's going to be 371 new names added to the memorial this year in Washington, D.C. from across the country. Over 200 of those are historical names, but 158 of those were officers who were killed or died in the line of duty during 2018. Unfortunately, the number one cause of death in the categories that are captured by the FBI is by gunfire. That means the officers were murdered in the line of duty. 53 of those officers, the number one single category, was by gunfire. I just came off of a week of vacation, and when I came back, I had 5 notices from the memorial page that officers were killed in the line of duty just last week. 42 this year have been killed in the line of duty, 28 by firearm. The good news is that's a 35% decrease over this time period last year. So hopefully that will that trend will continue through the course of this year. So we just value your support, our community's support over the course of the year, in recognizing our police officers and the hard work and dedication that they do for our citizens here in Sparks on a daily basis. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. You know, our police officers are under attack. And the James Hoff Memorial is in May, and it's well attended, and it's quite the ceremony. If you people can make it over there next year, please do. You'll be very impressed and saddened at the same time because we lose so many officers. Thank you, Chief. Thank you. Okay, 7.2, proclamation for the National Public Works Week. And if you haven't noticed, we got quite a few of our Public Works people here in the audience today, which is great. Mr. Corman. And Mr. Erickson, or as our previous mayor of Speed Hump.
Yeah, we'd invite you all down, but I don't think it's gonna fit. Okay, so whereas Public Works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of the city of Sparks. And whereas these infrastructure facilities and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, employees at all levels of government in the private sector, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, as well as public buildings and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, children in the city of Sparks to gain knowledge of and to maintain a progressive interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas this year, 2019, marks the 59th annual National Public Works Week sponsored by the the American Public Works Association. Now therefore, Ron Smith, Mayor of Sparks, do hereby proclaim May 19th through the 25th, 2019 as National Public Works Week, and urge all citizens to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association, government agencies in activities, events, and ceremonies dedicated to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees to recognize the substantial contributions they make protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. Thank you.
Mayor Smith, members of the council, Ron Corman, your Public Works Manager. I just want to thank you for recognizing this fantastic staff that I'm privileged to work with every day. These are your other first responders. These are the guys that are out there in the middle of the night when the snow comes down. These are the guys that come in when it's flooding. These are the guys that come in and respond to all those incidents that happen in our city and other cities across America on a daily basis and take care of the things that need to be taken care of to keep this a place where people want to live and work. So thank you very much.
John?
Yep. Thank you, Mayor, City Council members, John Erickson, City Engineer for the record. I would just like to echo what Mr. Corman has mentioned. You know, we on the public works side, you know, when there's a flood or a snow event, I've spent a couple of nights downstairs in our EOC working on flood and snow events, and so it's been a privilege working with the maintenance or public works maintenance division. I do have an opportunity to introduce our managers. Brian Kaysen is our capital project manager. Amber Sosa is our transportation manager. She can be now called Speed Hump. And Kevin Porter.
That may stick, Amber.
Yeah. Kevin Porter is our recently appointed utility manager. So thank you guys for what you do for our engineering division.
You know, and I'm so proud. I've been on the council or being mayor for the last 13 years, and I am so impressed and proud of this group of people here that they show up and they do the work, and it's in the middle of the night or whenever it happens to be, and they do the best job ever. We've got the best public works group in the three entities, so thank you so much for what you do. We're going to try to get a picture of everybody. You want to come up here, Julie, or what do you want to do? Yeah, we got some more comments too while we're moving around here. Or we can do it.
I'll let you hold that.
Just come right up here. We'll try to get a wide angle here. This is Dirty Cats.
You're gonna come right in here, yeah.
Hey, down in front, huh?
You're fine right there.
Stand tall, stand tall.
You got a full offensive line. Yeah, that's right.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you.
We still have a few comments from the council, if you guys can stick around for just a second.
I don't know if they're. They're leaving.
What a handsome group.
Like it's a motley crew. Thank you, guys.
I think they all left.
You want to say something anyway? You can say it, Ron's here, and they'll pass it on.
Yeah. I just wanted, and they've gone, I wanted to let the Public Works employees know how important I think they are to the city so many times with our flooding, with snow. I think you're the unsung heroes of what happens in this city that people don't see. You know, you're literally taking care of a lot of the dirty work of the city, and you're not front and center. And that doesn't mean that you're not appreciated. So thank you for all of our managers. Thank you for the hard work that you do for keeping our city from weeds to lawns to park maintenance to roads to all the work that you do is critically important because it all goes back to the quality of life of the city of Sparks and what our residents expect, our small town feel of this city and the city looking good and being safe, and you're a critical part of that. So if you could pass along to all of the crews how much I appreciate them. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to 7.3. Washoe County Bike Week. Who's doing this? That's right, we can read the proclamation. Come on down, Amber. Speed hump, come on down.
You're at least 2.0.
It's Miss Speed Hump, if you don't mind.
Awesome. Whereas there's a need to promote alternative forms of transportation, such as bicycling, in order to improve health and well-being, also reduces pollution, traffic congestion, and America's dependence on fossil fuels. And whereas creating bicycle-friendly communities has been demonstrated to improve quality of life, foster community connections, improve traffic safety, and stimulate economic growth. And whereas Safe Routes to School encourages students to use bike paths and trails throughout Washoe County, resulting in great potential to positively impact our community by enjoying the outdoors and healthy lifestyles. And whereas the Washoe County School District will join millions of Americans who will experience the joys of bicycling during May through educational and safety programs and community events, or just getting out and going for a ride. Whereas the education of bicyclists and motorists as to the proper and safe operation of bicycles is important to ensure the safety and comfort of all users. And whereas May has been declared National Bike Month for each of the last 65 years, now therefore on behalf of Ronald E. Smith, Mayor of City of Sparks, Nevada, do hereby proclaim the week May 11th to 17th, 2019 as Washoe County Bike Week.
Did you want to say a few words, Amber?
No, I think I'm okay. Thank
Oh,
you.
you're good?
No, thank you guys so much.
Well, how about a picture then with Mr. Abbott?
I can do that.
Okay.
I'm doing a good photo.
You can blame John for that.
Oh, I will.
Okay.
And Ron, if I could say a couple.
Sure. Mr.
I
Abbott.
think Thursdays are the bicycle ride from here, City Hall to Catherine Dunn? I think Kate Smith at 12:30. So if anyone wants to come out and ride, I know I'll be there. I got tandem, so I don't know if Christopher's flaking out on me. So I have a spot.
I'd have to say, if anybody does go for a ride with Councilman Abbott, he doesn't work at all, and you have to do all the work on that tandem, and he goes for a free ride. But, so this year I can't go, but he's looking for the engine that could. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on, 7.4 is a presentation, results of the waste characterization study conducted by the Washoe County Health Department. Come on down. Welcome. Introduce yourselves for us and we'll be good to go.
My name is Christy Chakarolu. I'm the Executive Director of Keep Truckee Meadows Beautiful, and we have a PowerPoint to go along with this. With me is Luke Franklin. Do I just close the tabs? With me is Luke Franklin, and I have to read this because it's a lot of words. He's the Senior Registered Environmental Health Specialist for the Washoe County Health District. And so he is actually the staff with the health district who administered and coordinated this waste characterization study, the results that I'm going to be showing you today. Thank you so much. You're welcome. I did cheat a little bit though, and I do have a few slides in here about Keep Truckee Meadows Beautiful, because I thought while I'm here, I might as well give you a quick update about what's going on. So in the last fiscal year, with your support, thank you so much for your support, Mayor and esteemed members of the council and staff. We have been able to accomplish a lot of great things in the city of Sparks. We're actually celebrating our 30th year this year. It's our 30th anniversary as an organization. And for those council members who may not know, we're an affiliate of Keep America Beautiful, which mostly affiliates with Keep America Beautiful tend to be a department of the Public Works Department, so it's kind of ironic they were here. Keep Truckee Meadows Beautiful is actually a private nonprofit organization, and we work very closely with city staff to get different things accomplished. And as you can see here, we were able to accomplish several cleanups within the city of Sparks in the past year that accomplished a lot of great removal of trash and green waste. We helped coordinate the Christmas tree recycling program at Shadow Mountain Sports Complex with the support of and partnership of City of Sparks Parks, which is amazing. We've had 10 adopters through our Adopt a Spot program, which is now supported through the Washoe County Health District, which is very exciting. And we have an education program that reached close to 800 youth in the city of Sparks. For the value, your return on investment, I would say we knocked it out of the ballpark. According to the independent sector, the value of a volunteer hour in Nevada for 2016 was about $22. So if you calculate all that up, your $10,000 investment brought you back $50,000. So thank you so much for your support. We really appreciate it. With that, I just want to jump into the waste characterization study. This was a study that was funded by the health district, and Luke is the expert. Thank you for coming with me, Luke. But what they did is they went through, it was a 2-season study to look through all of the trash that is taken to the transfer station in our area. And what they did is very scientific, and I've just got a couple slides here to give you an overview of that. But they broke down the different blocks of trash into 16 cell grids so that they could accurately track how much trash was going through. And so imagine this job, having to go through all that trash. But the beautiful thing is that it's an accurate analysis of what we're throwing away as a community, because the transfer station collects all this trash from the city of Reno, city of Sparks, and surrounding areas. So the results actually could pretty much be depicted in this photo. It's a lot of green waste. You'll see a lot of fall leaves here. Again, they did it over 2 seasons so that it wasn't skewed one way or another. So it was fall and spring. But from the results, you can see that more than half of the trash that we're throwing away as a community is all trash that can be diverted. It can be composted, it can be reused in some form. And so as you look at this, you can see 53%, more than half, can be separated and recycled. So for the self-haul rates, the amount of yard waste actually jumps, it more than doubles. In the transfer station from the trucks, it was 15% was yard waste. It's 36% in self-haul rates. Of course, food waste drops, but still the organic material increases from 53% to 54%. So it's a significant amount of waste that can be diverted in some way. As for the construction and demolition, is the very high percentage of inert and organic material that's found in there. Inert includes rock, dirt, sand. These are 64% of this waste can be diverted.
And that's specifically at the Telegraph transfer station. That's a privately owned transfer station. And they're only allowed to collect C&D, no municipal solid waste like purchasable garbage, things like that. That's why those numbers are so skewed.
So with the highlights of the studies is that business opportunities really abound in our area for organizations or groups that want to process and resell organic waste. And so we also learned through the results of this study that we do need to do a better job of recycling. There's a lot of wishful recycling going on where people want to see the garden hose recycled, so they put it into their recycling bin, and that screws up the work, so the whole loads gets, thrown into the trash can. So we need to also do a better job of education. For the self-haul findings, I think I jumped, for the self-haul findings, this material is rich in organic materials, all stuff that can be diverted. Same thing with C&D. And this entire study is available online on the Health District website. So for recommendations, we need more education. We need a lot more education. And we need to, and it's to encourage residents to do better and smarter recycling. We need to do a better job of highlighting the contamination that's happening in our waste stream and raise awareness so that we can try and create a cultural shift in our community. I mean, the packaging industry, as we all know, in the United States is out of control. I mean, I think I've talked about it with this group before, why do we need a box for our toothpaste tube? I mean, it's just, there's a lot of containers upon containers. And so we need to do a better job of thinking about those choices as we're going out and purchasing those items so we don't have to worry about how it affects our waste stream. You're probably wondering, what can I do as a Sparks City Council person? And I think it's really important to have your staff work with Washoe County Health District staff to look at what can be done to create or support community composting systems, because there's a real opportunity clearly in our area to divert a lot of this waste. So as the trash expert, but not necessarily the composting expert, that's all I really had to say. But if you have more specific questions, Luke, who is the composting expert, would be a good person to ask.
I will have just one quick thing is we were aware that City Sparks does have the month of May, where you guys are able to put out, yard waste and stuff like that. And this was done before that was done. So the considerable amount of green waste that we saw was done before that event took place. So you should expect even more in May, that's for sure.
That's it?
That's it.
Yeah, it's all on our website. We actually hired a private company to come and do it, Sloan, Vasquez, and McPhee. We had a 3-bid process and evaluated everybody's input, and they did a really good job and put together most of this presentation as well.
Okay, good report. Any questions or comments? Mr. Anderson?
Just want to start out by saying thank you very much for your leadership and your team, the work they're doing. Thank you for this presentation as well. Hopefully we can start as a community thinking through some ways to help reduce this so that we're utilizing it to the best way it could be. But I just wanted to say thank you very much. It's amazing to me, and I mean, again, our Public Works and Parks Department do a great job, but we go into one of our parks that looks pretty good, and then when you're done with one of these KTMB cleanups, you go, oh my gosh, bag upon bag upon bag of trash that's hauled off. So thank you for what you guys do.
Mr. Dare.
I want to know, how much actually recycling are we doing these days? Because I hear different stories and different things, and truthfully, I don't spend a lot of time down at that place. So, but are we recycling? How much is being recycled?
Washoe County recycle rate was calculated at just above 21% this year. And so that's calculating, residential recycling and commercial recycling, things like that. That's even diverting wood to, clean wood to bio plants, where they burn it and make energy. But that's all counted in the Washoe County recycle rate. So that's submitted annually to the state of Nevada. And so 21%, rough numbers, I'd have to look at it, like tonnage and things like that.
Do you have any idea how we would compare to another city or another region?
Well, it depends. If you look at a city like San Francisco or something like that, we're way below them. But someplace like, middle of somewhere in Nebraska, we're probably ahead of them for sure.
Gotcha.
We're ahead of Las Vegas.
That's right, yeah.
Well, that's all that matters.
Yeah, we're actually one of the better recyclers in the state, so.
My only other question, or actually comment, I just want to say thank you. We have so much open doors for people to go and serve down at the river, and so thank you for your hard work on that. And I know this is a stellar year, you guys out showing yourself, so thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Abbott.
Yeah, looking at like clean wood and in my head, I think of like just having a fireplace or something, but you're talking about all these power plants. Where, is there somewhere I can go, or maybe everyone go, to check out if we have items like that? Where can we take them that are better for the environment? And
So like, and that's interesting. So that would be like captured in the self-haul, this self-haul portion of it. So that's like people like me and you having like a truckload of stuff that we're gonna take down to the transportation on the weekend. And so if a person were to go through that load and separate out, like, you know, if you remodeled your kitchen or something like that and had a bunch of 2x4s and were able to take those that weren't painted and didn't have, you know, nails and things like that in them, and, you know, they could separate them out and haul them up to the only cogen power plants that I know of is there's one in Honey Lake and there's another one in Loyalton. And so they operate on sporadic basis, which makes things kind of difficult too for that specific situation. Because, you know, if they get a bunch of stockpile of wood and then, you know, they make a bunch of energy and then sometimes they shut down and then the people, they go, well, you had a bunch of stockpiled wood, do you want to come get it? And you go, no, we're not operating, so landfill.
RT Donovan can also take yard waste and they will process and compost it. And it's, you know, it's a great business model. This works really well in the Northwest. It's just really dry here. So I think it's a bit more of a struggle. But you can take your yard waste to RT Donovan and you pay to drop it off, and then they process it and you pay to pick it up. It's much like Full Circle down in Minden.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Thank you so much for the report.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
And I'm going to deviate from the agenda here for a minute. About a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, we decided we wanted to take back our river. It was unsafe for the people. Now you can go down and walk along the paths and everything. And part of that is the cleanup and the police work they do down there. And Mr. Corman, when you come down, and I know you got some figures for us. And I don't think this is for the entire time. This is for a shorter time span.
Hi, Ron Corman, again, your Public Works Manager.
Thank you, Ron.
So just to continue on with what you're saying, this time period is from the beginning of our fiscal year, which is July 1st through April 30th of 2019. City Public Works workers have removed or spent 4,442 man hours down cleaning up either homeless camps or general Riverwalk river improvement activities. During that time, 3,458 cubic yards of material were hauled out. That equals approximately 345 full-size dump truck loads of material. Total cost for us for labor during that time is $110,000, and the total cost of equipment is about just under $70,000, so about $180,000 over the last 9 months or so, give or take.
So just a shout out, just to see that the city of Sparks is doing their best they can do down there. It's very expensive, but we're not going to give up, and we appreciate the work that your crew does. Obviously, the police department, they're down there all the time, and MOST, is it called the MOST? The group? MOST.
Yes.
That's from the county, going down and adding assistance, but we're so thankful for the work you guys are doing down there. It's great.
I'd like to add that we couldn't do what we've been able to accomplish down there without the help of the police department. They have been instrumental in working together with us to complete this project, or to work towards completion of this project, I should say. It's not done yet.
Thanks, Ron, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Just wanted to get that out to everybody, let them know that we work hand in hand with these folks up here, and it's a big job. Okay, 7.5, boards and commissions, vacancy announcement, Arts and Culture Advisory. Is that you, Neil?
Yes, sir. And if it's okay with you and the council, I will read all 5 different groups that we're looking for positions on, and then cover one time how to apply.
Okay.
7.5 is for our Arts and Culture Advisory Committee. We are looking for 1 member to fill a partial term that will end November 6th of 2020, and we're looking for somebody with a humanities background. On our Civil Service Commission, we are looking for 1 member to serve a 3-year term. On the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority Board of Trustees, we're looking for 1 member to serve a 4-year term. On our Parks and Recreation Commission, we are looking for 2 members to serve 3-year terms and 1 member to fill a partial term that will end June 30th of 2020. And finally, for the Washoe County Home Consortium Technical Review Committee, We are looking for one member to serve a 3-year term, and we are looking for somebody who is not a staff member of local government, and they are not required to be technically proficient in the work that the Home Consortium or Technical Review Committee does. We're looking for a layperson to help us out there.
And tell them how they can,
So,
apply.
persons interested in serving on these committees should complete a community service application available from the city clerk's office. You may also apply online at the city's website, www.cityofsparks.us. Click on Government on the webpage, then under Boards and Commissions, click Volunteering for a Sparks Board or Commission, then fill out the online application and hit Submit. Applications will be accepted for all of these positions until the close of business on May 31st.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Okay, we'll move on to consent items. Anybody want to pull one? Not looking for a motion. Mr. Abbott.
I move to approve 8.1 through 8.3.
Okay, we have a motion. Looking for a second. Mr. Lawson. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Okay, 9.1, general business. Consideration, discussion, and possible approval of the 2019 Bering Boulevard Safety Project, bid number 18/19-020, contract to Titan Electrical Contracting amount of $185,600. Amber.
Mayor Smith, members of council, I'm Amber Sosa, Transportation Manager. I'm presenting today for your consideration a contract with Titan Electrical Contracting in the amount of $185,600 for the 2019 Bering Boulevard Safety Project. The City of Sparks recently had a traffic study conducted on Bering Boulevard in the area adjacent to Reed High School. The recommendations from that study include various improvements to the crosswalks on Bering Boulevard, which define the scope of this project. The project will reduce the number of crosswalks in this area. There's 4 existing crosswalks down to 2, and the 2 remaining will be significantly enhanced with improved overhead lighting, as well as RRFBs, the rectangular rapid flashing beacons that are pedestrian activated. The map before you shows the area in front of Reed High School. The 2 red X's are the crosswalks to be removed. The additional 2 with the red circles are where we would like to install those RRFBs to allow the pedestrians to activate the flashers for the crossing, as well as additional overhead lighting. The construction of this project will begin after school is released for summer break, and it's contracted to be complete before school comes back into session in mid-August. The project advertised on March 20th, 2019, and was bid on April 3rd, with the city receiving 2 qualified bids. Titan Electrical submitted the lowest bid. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, questions or comments? See none, looking for a motion? Mr. Anderson.
I move to approve the 2019 Bering Boulevard Safety Project Contract AC-5562 to Titan Electrical Contracting in the amount of $185,600.
Okay, we have a motion. Looking for a second. Mr. Abbott.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Bybee.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for the work that you've done on this very important project. Obviously, we found the safety concerns we can't minimize at all in front of the high school. I really like the fact that we're going down to the 2 crosswalks to have those flashing crosswalks for everyone, for students, for staff, for all of us who drive up and down Bering Boulevard, for the drivers too. I think a very important safety. And the improved lighting obviously was necessary as well. So I appreciate the work that you did, the fact that we're working with the school district to make this a partnership to address a very, very serious problem. So thank you for your work, and I will be voting in support of this motion today.
Mr. Abbott.
Yeah, real quick, I just want to thank Madison for being in the audience today. She's the young lady that came down that kind of created this whole the snowball that I think is a good solution. That government, I've been down to Reed High School to talk to the kids, and one of the biggest things I'm like, you can get involved. This is a great example of getting involved in your local government and having a positive solution come from it. So thanks for coming, Madison. So.
And I know it seems like it's taken us a long time, but we'll get it done and done right. Thank you, Madison. Okay, is there any more discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, 9.2, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of an interlocal cooperative agreement, AC 5564, with the RTC, Washoe County, for projects included in the RTC's program of projects.
Mayor Smith, members of council, Amber Sosa, Transportation Manager. Before you today is an interlocal cooperative agreement with the RTC, the Regional Transportation Commission, for projects included in their FY 2020 POP, Program of Projects. This is an agreement that allows the City of Sparks and the RTC to work together on our regional roads, and it's an annual agreement that comes before you each year. The FY 2020 POP details what the RTC intends to do in their fiscal year 20. Their projects include preventative projects to increase roadway life longevity, road rehab projects, roadway capacity projects, safety projects, traffic signal timing and improvement projects. The City of Sparks engineering and utility divisions work closely with the RTC to help prioritize regional road projects. With that, I would like to introduce Brian Stewart. He's RTC's Director of Engineering for the presentation on this agreement.
And Amy, you're going to come down also? Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Sparks City Council. Thank you for letting us take the opportunity to discuss and show a little bit on how we get to the ICA, the Intercooperative Agreement for the 2020 fiscal year. Let's see.
Where's that bus stop at?
Do the arrows. The bus stop is fourth grader.
Okay.
Yeah, exciting project. So the project development process, I'll go through these as quick as I can, but the 2040 regional plan is what really derives that. That's 20 years of projects that are listed in the time frame. The first 10 years of that regional transportation plan is what we call the CIP, or the Capital Improvement Plan. Out of that is the first 5 years, which is our regional transportation plan. All those get approved by the RTC board. And that's where our projects come from that feed into our program of projects, which we'll see here in a little bit more detail as I go through. And that's what we're actively working on in the street and highway program for RTC. Then each year we fund that POP of what RTC board has approved and into the budget, and then we go into a project delivery. So a little bit more on that is the projects are recommended by the RTC, the Technical Advisory Committee, and the Citizens Multimodal Advisory Committee recommends that, and then the RTC board approves it. The program projects are reviewed and input retained from each one of the jurisdictions that are in the RTC. That's Reno, Sparks, and Washoe County. Washoe County first has to authorize the projects, which you'll see on the ICA that they have already done that and executed the ICA. And then that we move that forward into implementation to the other jurisdictions, being Sparks and Reno. It's fuel tax that is funding these projects. Majority of the projects are fuel tax that are in there. And those are the items that must be found by the RTC board for us to be approving the projects. So here you'll see the ICA that is in front of you. Here's a little spreadsheet that just shows the new projects for 2020. We have the 4th Street Bike Facility, Lemon Drive. We are funding the Spaghetti Bowl at $10 million up to 3 fiscal years, so that's $30 million total. That's a $150 million project, so that's an exciting project. Number one priority for the RTC. We're excited that this is going to kick off here at the end of this calendar year, early next, with a shovel in the ground and fixing that Spaghetti Bowl Express and getting that congestion in the Spaghetti Bowl fixed and underway. One of the exciting ones here in Sparks is Sparks Boulevard. We got almost a $60 million project that would go from Gregg almost to Springland up there, and we'll be starting the design, getting a consultant on board with that. Sierra Street, some improvements for bikeways, and West 4th Street also is in there. The last 5 things that are listed in the spreadsheet are our programs: our preventative maintenance program, our reconstruct program, which go to total about $17 million of fuel tax that gets invested into the longevity of our infrastructure and our streets. We also do our traffic improvements, our spot intersection improvements. That's a lot of the signals that you see that go up around as far as helping with congestion and helping with capacity. We have our ITS and LiDAR and some of the studies we do with new technology. And then this year, we're really funded and put a focus on the RTC board and made it clear that we want ADA access and transit and multimodal connectivity from our transit to our street functions. And so we have a large program to work on the bus stops and make sure they're accessible for all users. This is the same thing, just graphically, of the new projects of which the RTC board approved. Combined with our existing projects, we get quite a program going, and so we have quite a bit of work going on in RTC, and so we love to stay busy and work with our local jurisdictions to deliver these great projects. Just wanted to talk a little bit about the payment preservation program. Like I said, $17 million for FY 2020. The payment conditions are provided by the local jurisdictions, and it's a qualitative approach on that. So the numbers drive what kind of condition that those roads are in and what kind of treatment they need. Spend a little bit of money on roads that are in good shape, or spend a lot of money on roads that have not been treated as well and are needing heavy repair. We have our selection process for the bike and the pedestrians and ADA projects. As you see, the group categories for the smaller bike ADA projects, and then the projects identified are put in priorities in the bicycle master plan as well as the pedestrian master plan to meet these goals that you see before you on the screen. So here's some of the stops we want to get into advertising for the end of this year and early part of next year so we can get going. So there's quite a robust program there and putting $2 million into getting those stops into ADA compatible in a status, so they're ADA compatible. And then the TE spots, how are those picked? And our local agencies work with us close through the Traffic Operations Committee, and the members include all the local government experts and NDOT staff. And we identify those needs, and we look at what funding's available, and then we move those forward in a year and a half timeframe to construction to install those great projects that keep us moving around the region. And I'd be happy to answer any questions for you with respect to the ICA, and I love working with the City of Sparks.
Questions or comments? Mr. Dare.
I do appreciate you working on our bus stops. I know our mayor pointed it out a moment ago, but in our conversation, do you have any idea? We had talked, I think, in our RTC meeting, the idea of doing a layout so we know when you're going to be working on what bus stops and things of that fashion so we can prepare for it, because some of our bus stops are some pretty bad condition.
Thanks, Councilman. Great question. Yes, we will update you and keep you updated right here. Without the names is the map of the ones that we're trying to hit first out of the first phase, which would be the first fiscal year. So I apologize, I don't have them laid out by name, but those are the ones we're going to hit, and then try to be advertising that in November timeframe as far as to get to work. And they're very spotty, and so they just take this a lot of work with respect to it's just a little bit of work here, and then you got to move on to the next stop and do a little bit. So it takes a lot of time and a little bit of money to get underway, but this is what we're going for first, right out of the gate.
I don't know if you need it, but I know on Gregg Street and stuff, we have some of those that are, if it rains, they're standing in water. So if you needed any help at all or questions, we probably have some areas that we would ask you to go to first, possibly. So, thank you.
Thank you.
And I know that I've been hitting the bus stops hot and heavy. There's over how many bus stops in the county?
Thanks, Mayor. I think we have over 1,000 bus stops.
We have over 1,000, and I know we're going through all of them, trying to upgrade what we can and hit the worst spots first.
Yeah, we're programming this for over 3 years, so we really made a commitment to move this forward.
Yeah. Also, I want to point out that the $150 million that we're going to spend on the Spaghetti Bowl, is that called Fast Track?
Spaghetti Bowl Express.
Express. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Do we have an approximate value of what we're doing at the Spaghetti Bowl?
Well, you're correct. The $150 million is Amy Cummings, RTC, is the phase one that NDOT's working on that's going to be starting construction in the near term. The long-term project includes improvements on I-80 in Sparks, 395, 580 south of there, which will probably be a 10 to 15-year program overall. And I think it's close to $1 billion.
Yeah, it's pushing $1 billion.
No, I
Yeah.
thought it was a little bit over $1 billion, but
Yeah.
I mean, we made a decision to fix the spaghetti bowl. It's actually one of the priorities for the state. And the deal was, we need to fix it one more time and stop with the $1 million or $2 million, and when they're done, we don't even know what they did. So it's an exciting project. It's gonna have a little discomfort for many years, but it'll be well worth it.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Amy, did you want to jump in here?
Not unless there are some additional questions. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing anything. Thank you so much for the report. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. Looking for a motion. Ms. Bybee.
I move to approve the interlocal cooperative agreement AC 5564 with the Regional Transportation Commission of Washoe County for the fiscal year 2020 program of projects.
Okay, we have a motion. Looking for a second, Mr. Abbott.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Okay, 9.3. Consideration, discussion, and possible approval of interlocal cooperative agreement AC 5565 for reimbursement with the RTC of Washoe County in the amount of $230,000 for construction of sewer and storm drain improvements. Kevin, welcome.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Members of council, for the record, Kevin Porter, Utility Manager. The item before you is an interlocal agreement with the RTC for reimbursement of construction costs. As we just heard from Amber Sosa and Brian Stewart, there's a significant amount of work the RTC does within the city of Sparks boundaries. And anytime that we have pavement or rehabilitation work going on our city streets, we like to evaluate or look into our assessment data and determine if there are any deficiencies subterranean, basically in our sewer or our storm drain utility networks that can be addressed while that street is being rehabbed. And that way we catch those items and try to fix them to prevent us from having to go back, tear up brand new pavement and fix those items and then pay for repaving. And so this item here is to reimburse the RTC for the construction cost of said utility work. The amount is $230,000. And if I can direct your eyes to the exhibit on the screen, it'll show the two locations that the work has been identified and associated with this interlocal agreement. In the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, which is an area of the city bounded by Prater Way and Victorian Avenue there, it's in the intersection of 15th Street and C Street. And in that intersection where the RTC will be doing some pavement rehabilitation, we discovered deficiencies both in the sewer and storm drain line. And so the RTC, the contractor that the RTC will award their work to will also correct that sewer and storm drain work. It's approximately 250 lineal feet of 8-inch PVC sewer plus a manhole and 200 lineal feet of 8-inch storm drain in that area. And then if I can direct your eyes to the upper left-hand corner of the graphic, that is a length of pavement running along El Rancho Drive between G Street and just south of Audi Boulevard. And we just completed our sewer improvement project along the El Rancho corridor from G Street all the way up to Capurro Way. This section here that you see was identified in an upcoming RTC project to have some pedestrian improvements done along the east side of the street. And so instead of repaving when we completed our sewer project through El Rancho, we left this section unpaved and worked with the RTC to figure out reimbursement costs so that when they complete their pedestrian improvements, we can just pave El Rancho one time. And so, as I mentioned, it's in the amount of $230,000, and the construction for both areas is anticipated to be complete this summer of 2019. Staff recommends approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Thanks, Kevin. Questions or comments? Mr. Dare.
One quick question. I know they're going to be starting to work on Audi. RTC is this in conjunction with any of that, or This is just a whole separate issue. Is it around the same timing? I know, isn't stuff starting on that soon? I'm just really thinking about traffic. I'm thinking if we shut down.
Brian Stewart, Director of Engineering for RTC. Yeah, the Audie Wells project is in the design, but we're still a year out before we would go
Okay.
into construction.
Thank you. That was my question. Appreciate it.
Hey, Mr. Anderson.
I just want to say that being newer to the council, I want to compliment the city as well as RTC on this kind of coordination. I think a lot of us in a community believe that government is reactionary and we just want to spend money without much care. And this is a perfect example of how it works well with the different entities coming together. And if a roadway's taken up, why not look at it and see if there are other things that can be done? So I just want to compliment you guys for that. Thank you.
Okay, any more questions, comments? Seeing none, looking for a motion. Mr. Abbott.
Yep. I move to approve the interlocal cooperative agreement AC 5565 for reimbursement with the Regional Transportation Commission, the RTC, in the amount of $230,000 for construction of sewer and storm drain improvements to be included in RTC Sparks Consolidated 2019 project.
Okay, we have a motion, look for a second. Mr. Dare.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, 9.4. Consideration, discussion, and possible approval of reimbursement to the city of Reno in the amount of $1,348,439.45 for Sparks' share of a construction contract AC 5568 with KG Walters Construction Company Incorporated for the Nitrification Tower 2 rehab project. Mr. Drinkwater.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Michael Drinkwater, Treatment Plant Manager. You have before you a request to consider reimbursement to the city of Reno for a Tomorrow capital improvement project. This particular one is the Nitrification Tower 2 rehabilitation. It is the customary reimbursement we do to the city of Reno. However, this project is a little bit different. As you're painfully aware, nitrogen is a critical component of the treatment. Nitrogen treatment is a critical component of Tomorph. This tower is very important to our compliance, our annual compliance with the TMDL, but it has been in continual service since 1985, and it is due for a rehab. One of the things, to make this is different than other capital projects in the sense we're asking for approval of the contract now, where the contractor will go into an extended procurement phase where they will buy all of the necessary materials to rehab the tower, which includes, it's 70 feet across, it's 20 feet tall, it's filled with the honeycomb plastic media, it has a rotating distributor mechanism on top, and some other ancillary features. We want all of that equipment on site before we allow them to take it out of service and begin the rehab, so that they have the shortest possible construction window so we can get that tower back and get it repopulated with biology prior to the winter weather setting in. Consequently, we anticipate construction to begin in March of 2020, even though I am asking you to approve the contract today so that KG Walters can start buying all of that material. Some of that does have a 6-month lead time. They will probably get all of their material, they will get all their materials on site probably sometime in the late fall, early winter. That is a horrible time to take a tower out of service, so we're not gonna let them do it. We're gonna make them hold until the weather breaks. We're anticipating March 15th, where then they will start the construction phase. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions or comments? Mr. Dare.
With that kind of money, sometimes I just think our constituents wonder, that's a lot of money. So they sit back looking at that. But these are so important, especially this particular thing as we move forward infrastructure-wise. Could you just speak to that for a moment? Because with what we're doing with the next phase of our sewage plant and things, how important it is that we get this done?
Absolutely, sir. Mr. Dare. The treatment of nitrogen, the removal of nitrogen from the wastewater is currently the limiting factor of treatment at Truckee Meadows Water Reclamation. The nitrification towers convert nitrogen from ammonia to nitrate, which is subsequently removed in the next process. If it doesn't happen in the towers, then ultimately that ammonia just continues to flow through and into the Truckee River, where it creates damage to the native flora and fauna, as well as causing us to violate our discharge permit. So both legally and environmentally, a deleterious impact. So having properly functioning nitrification towers is critical to us maintaining compliance with our discharge limit.
Thank you. I'm ready to make a motion if you like one, sir.
Sure. No, we have one more question. Mr. Abbott.
Yeah, more of a comment or comment question. We did the stress test last year, right, for this. So I guess where my statement's more, we've already kind of did a practice round of looking at what's going to happen before we decide to take this out. So we kind of had somewhat of a ballpark going in. So I just wanted to compliment you guys for knowing before guessing going into this project. So thanks.
Okay, any other questions? Looking for a motion, Mr. Dare.
I move to approve reimbursement of the City of Reno for Sparks' share of a construction contract AC 5568 with KG Walters Construction Company Incorporated for the Nutrification Tower 2 2019 rehabilitation project at the Truckee Meadows Water Reclamation Facility in the amount of $1,348,439.45.
Okay, we have a motion looking for a second. Ms. Bybee?
Second.
Yeah. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you, Michael.
What was that, 45 cents?
45 cents.
Bam.
Consider, 9.5, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of a tentative map request for a 161 lot, single-family subdivision on a site 80.83 acres in the size generally located northeast corner of Sheed Bar Drive and Rolling Meadows Drive. Doctor, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Jonathan Cummins, planner. PCN 19-3 is a tentative map request for a 161 lot residential, single-family subdivision located on 80.83 acres in the Pioneer Meadows plan development outlined in red on the vicinity map. A quick background, the Pioneer Meadows Plan Development Handbook was adopted by the council in 2000. It's been amended 4 times since then, most recently in March of this year. The Pioneer Meadows Handbook classifies this site as SFR4, or single-family residential, maximum density of 4 dwelling units per acre. Further, the site's designated by the Sparks Comprehensive Plan as LDR, low-density residential, which allows for 3 to less than 6 dwelling units per acre. I got somebody closed down one of my things here, sorry. There's your second image. Lots on this tentative map range from just over 6,600 square feet to just over 14,000 square feet with a density of 3.85 dwelling units per acre. At its April 4th Planning Commission meeting, the Sparks Planning Commission forwarded a recommendation of approval by making the following required 12 findings for a tentative map. Finding T1 requires conformance with the comprehensive plan. Proposed tentative map meets goals CF1 that services can be provided by the city. Policy C4 that pedestrian improvements are in place. Policy H1 that the appropriate zoning, infrastructure, and facilities exist for new housing in the city. Policy H2 to promote a variety of housing in the city, as well as policy CC8, which promotes neighborhood diversity. Finding T2 requires conformance with the street master plan. Proposed tentative map does conform. Finding T3 requires conformance with environmental health laws. While the developer will be ultimately responsible to comply with any such regulations, staff has received no comments from those agencies. Finding T4 addresses the availability of water. Truckee Meadows Water Authority will provide water service to the site. Finding T5 addresses the availability of utilities. Developer estimates that 52,325 gallons a day on average will be generated by the subdivision. The city engineer has issued an intent to serve letter confirming the city's capacity. Finding T6 addresses the availability of schools, police, transportation, and parks. Spanish Springs Elementary, Shaw Middle School, and Spanish Springs High Schools will serve the site. Sparks Police Department will provide police service to the site. The applicant has estimated 161 peak hour trips into and off of the site per day, and 2 parks are planned for the Pioneer Meadows. Finding T7 requires any further impacts on streets be addressed. This tentative map will not affect the anticipated traffic patterns for Pioneer Meadows. Finding T8 addresses floodplain slope and soil, reports for which will be finalized and approved by the city engineer prior to the final map stage. Finding T9 addresses comments from any other outside agencies. Staff has only heard from the school district indicating which schools will serve the site. Finding T10 addresses fire service. The site is outside the City of Sparks Fire Department's 6-minute response time network, and as a result, the Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District mutual aid agreement will take effect for the site. Finding T11 addresses any other identified impacts. Staff believes that this tentative map is compatible with previously submitted tentative maps in Pioneer Meadows. The one requirement which you'll see in the conditions with the staff report is that the Landscaping Maintenance Association and HOA or the developer will be responsible for landscaping at the site. Finding T12 requires public notice. The posting of today's agenda as well as that of the April 4th Planning Commission meeting will serve as that notice. And with that, the Planning Commission is forwarding a recommendation of approval for this tentative map. I'll be glad to take your questions.
Questions or comments? See none, looking for a motion. Mr. Dare.
I'll make a motion to approve the tentative map request for a 161 lot single-family subdivision on a site 80.83 acres in size associated with PCN 19-003 and located in the Pioneer Meadows Plan Development, adopting findings T1 through T12 and the facts supporting these findings as set forth in the staff report and subject to conditions of approval 1 through 50.
Okay, we have a motion, looking for a second. Ms. Bybee.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. And it passes unanimously. Thank you, sir. 9.6, consideration, discussion, and possible action on a roadway improvement cooperation agreement, AC 5566, between the City of Sparks, Legends Outlet Shops, LLC, for completing the construction of Windsurfer Drive in Sparks, Nevada, and the city's portion of the project cost totaling $112,690. Mr. Erickson.
Thank you, Mayor, the city council members, John Erickson, city engineer for the record. This is a very exciting agreement. We are finally going to be getting Windsurfer Drive paved. I believe it's, 14, 15 years that this has been sitting out there, but we've got a commitment from the Sparks Legends to help out with the eastern portion of Windsurfer Drive. The road is outlined here in Cardinal. It's not
Cardinal,
red.
yep. I was going to correct you if you said red.
Okay, so it's on the western side of the Legends development. As you may recall, back when we did the CIP workshop, we identified this project, and we have a revenue source that was going to be identified, as well as a project that we identified with the CIP. So the funding that Legends will be providing us will go as a revenue into the road fund, and then we will manage the utilization of that money as we're moving forward with the project. I'd just like to touch upon the analysis of who's responsible for what with regards to the project. The civil engineering improvement plans, which is included in your agenda packet, has a plan and profile, a draft plan and profile that's been identified. Sparks Legends is going to provide the city with $10,000 to go towards final design. The dedication of right-of-way, there are two actual parcels that are adjacent to Windsurfer Drive. There is the RV or distributor. It sits approximately in this portion or the southern end of Windsurfer Way. They will be dedicating their portion of Windsurfer to the city of Sparks, as well as Sparks Legends, which is on the northern end of Windsurfer Way. Construction costs, we have established the construction costs for the roadway portion that's on the eastern portion of Windsurfer Drive at $152,357. Construction of the improvements, this fell into our capital improvement plans, so the city of Sparks will be constructing the improvements on Windsurfer Drive. There is an existing wall that sits adjacent to the existing dirt access road that will need to be removed. Sparks Legends will remove the wall, and then the adjacent property owners will have to replace it once we're done with the road. With regards to sidewalk on the eastern portion of the roadway, at this point in time, we're not going to require sidewalk just due to the fact that we don't know what kind of development that would be going on the Sparks Legends parcel. So we'll be looking at that, once the project comes in. We're recommending a waiver of the condition of approval for the PD or PEDC parcel, which is the RV parcel that was condition 4, which required them to construct Windsurfer Drive. At this point, there's no reason for them to have that condition due to the fact that we'll be taking care of the roadway. And then lastly, there's direct access to Windsurfer Drive. In the future, should a development come in for the Sparks Legends parcel, we will sit down with the developer to determine whether or not they will gain access off of Windsurfer Drive. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Questions or comments? Mr. Anderson.
I'd like to make a motion if that's okay.
Go ahead.
This one's been a long time coming.
It has, yeah.
I move to approve the roadway improvement cooperation agreement AC 5566 between the City of Sparks and Sparks Legends Outlet Shops LLC for completing the construction of Windsurfer Drive.
Okay, I have a motion looking for a second. Mr. Abbott.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thank you, John. Okay, 9.7. Presentation, discussion, and possible approval of an employment agreement, AC 5569, for John A. Martini for the position of Assistant City Manager effective May 13th, 2019. What's today's date? That's tomorrow. With a yearly salary of $197,579.20. Mr. Kreutz.
Good afternoon, Mayor Smith and members of the council. For the record, Neil Kreutz, your city manager, here with a couple of exciting items that relate to the first one, a reorganization that you all approved at your April 22nd meeting, where we're taking a look at some of the changes that we've got going on in the upper end of our organization in terms of retirements and who's reporting to who and trying to free time up. And in doing that, as you have allowed me to move forward with, we created a second assistant city manager level position and eliminated a community services director position. I have selected John Martini and appointed him to that new assistant city manager position, and the employment contract that you have here in front of you today would be your affirmation of allowing me to move forward with John in that position. John is a long-term city employee. He's in his 20th year of employment with the city, and he's held a variety of positions working up on through the engineering and development side of our house. With this reorganization, he will also oversee the operations of our Parks and Recreation Department. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions or comments? Mr. Martini, would you like to say a few words? Welcome, John.
Thank you, Ron. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, John Martini. I guess I'm not the assistant city manager yet, so I'll say just, like Neil said, this is my 20th year. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever imagine being a public servant, and it has been probably the best experience of my career. I'm looking forward to finishing my career here at the City of Sparks. The hair, I keep telling you, keeps getting grayer. It is a pleasure to serve this council. I'm excited to work under this new organizational structure. We have so many things to do, and I'm very excited to be a part of it. And I am very appreciative of this effort. Thank you.
Mr. Dare.
I want to say thank you. I've been off in council for 2.5 years, and you've taken very complex things and helped make sense of them, I guess. Coming close and making decisions on sewage, you name it, all that stuff. So I'm excited about the potential of this. I know we get to vote and decide officially if this all happens, but I think it's a good choice, and I appreciate what you've done, and I look forward to the future. I look forward to seeing many things in our city.
Thank you, Councilman Dare.
Ms. Bybee.
I would like to thank you for the amount of work that you and your community services, the whole staff, has done. I don't know that every other entity has the luxury that we have of meeting with staff before every council meeting and really getting briefed on what's coming before us. It's an opportunity for us to ask questions that we especially when we're brand new, I mean, I feel a little more comfortable after 4.5 years, obviously, than the first time as the only rookie on this council. And I depend on staff because you're the experts in the different arenas that we're called to make decisions on. So it's critically important that our staff has the knowledge, the background, and the willingness to work with us and provide us with the information we need to make good decisions up here. So thank you, and thank you to the staff. And I'm ready to make a motion if the mayor
Go ahead.
would like me to. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I move to approve the employment agreement AC 5569 between the City of Sparks and John A. Martini and authorize the city manager to execute the contract.
Okay, we have a motion. Looking for a second, Mr. Abbott.
I will gladly second that.
Okay, good. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Drum roll.
I'm thinking.
Passes unanimously. Thank you, John. Mr. Assistant City Manager.
I have you on speed dial, brother.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, John. Okay, moving on to more excitement. 9.8, presentation, discussion, and possible approval of an employment agreement, AC 5560, for James A. Reed for the position of Fire Chief effective June 7th, 2019, with a yearly salary of $185,224. Mr. Kreutz.
Good afternoon, Mayor Smith and members of the council. For the record, Neil Kreutz, your city manager, here with the second exciting item of the day, and also part of the reorganization. But this is actually one of the items that helped set up the reorganization, and that is that we have our current fire chief, Chris Maples, is going to be retiring on June 7th of this year. And in getting to know the three gentlemen who had the opportunity to try and compete for this position and ultimately move forward into a series of interviews with two of them, and in upholding our long-standing tradition of promoting from within whenever possible. As a matter of fact, Sparks has never brought an external fire chief into its organization. We are a homegrown bunch and we are proud of it. I am pleased to be here today with my choice for your next fire chief, and that is Jim Reed. Jim has been with us for a long time. I have gotten to know him both in his role as our operations division chief and at the labor negotiating table too, as my counterpart across that. And between that and then the interview lunches that I held with both of the candidates who move forward, I got to know him even better, and I am very pleased to be able to sit in front of you here today and say he is my appointment for your next fire chief and ask you to approve the employment contract in front of you.
Thank you, Neil. Mr. Reed, would you like to come down? I think you should. Welcome, Jim.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. For the record, Jim Reed, your current operations chief for the fire department. I'm honored to be here today for, I guess, possibly being your next fire chief. And just a little background on me. I began my firefighting career 29 years ago, just north of the city of Sparks. 2-lane road, Pyramid Highway, out to the fire station, Truckee Meadows, just off of La Posada. So it's crazy for me to think that now the city actually reaches all the way out there. I had many mentors in my career, through 29 years. I intend to use these leadership traits to make our fire department better and to make you guys proud. Our fire department has a bunch of good and dedicated people, and they want to serve our community. And I believe we've been doing that, and we're going to continue that. My family is here to support me, and they've been here throughout my whole career. I got my mom, Charlotte.
Hand up, Charlotte. Wave.
My wife, Julie.
Julie.
And my sons, Casey and Corey.
Welcome. You should be very proud.
And I look forward to serving in this position and working with all of you and all the departments in the city.
Okay, is there any questions or comments for Jim? Okay, looking for a motion, Mr. Anderson.
Actually,
Oh,
before I make a motion, I just have a comment. Not only are you well-respected right here in Sparks, but as I've talked to more and more people that are in your line of work, they speak very highly of you.
Thank you.
From being a smoke jumper when you were young all the way to where you are now. You're being commended for a forward thinker and a great leader. So I just wanted to make those comments. It reinforces our city manager's decision. And with that, I'd like to make the motion to move to approve the employment agreement AC 5560 between City of Sparks and James A. Reed, and authorize the city manager to execute the contract.
Okay, we have a motion and I'm looking for a second. Mr. Dare.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. You know, we want to get you and your family down here to take some pictures, but I've got to tell everybody in the room, in January, we're looking at the retirements coming up. We're looking at a daunting experience to try to figure out what we're going to do. But the people, the cream came to the top. City manager, police chief, fire chief. I am looking forward to the future of Sparks. I think it's nothing but bright. So, and you're part of that, Jim. Thank you so much. Can we get your family down here? Yep. Can we get some pictures? Come on up here. Yeah, come on up here, Jim. Let's get a picture of just you and your family, and then we'll join in the next picture. How's that? Congratulations. 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 Good looking group. I know. I thought I had to mess with Martine. Okay, so now let's all get the council in here. I'm just gonna have to get closer now, you know.
So which one's Harry Walter?
Can you get us all in here? I'm always standing next to some guy that's 6 feet tall.
Yeah. Just don't look behind you.
Yeah, don't look behind me. Can you get us all? One more? Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for coming down. Coming down today.
I won't hold that against you.
What a great team. Thanks, Neil.
You got a picture of John Martini?
Did we get a picture of John?
I'd even made it.
No, I think we need a picture. Get up here.
This has to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't.
Don't sit down there. I would hate to share with
This
You get in the picture too, Neil.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, see, that's where I learned it from. Duck out.
Neil, come on.
Ron, he's still taller than you.
I know. I know.
I have a couple.
Or his flag.
Yeah.
Talk to you after we leave.
Steal his flag. Did he steal your
Oh,
flag?
no. It's a bit of a running joke.
I don't see his American flag either.
I had to mess with you, but.
Oh, that was best.
Okay, any more photos?
I think we're good. Okay, moving on. 9.9 as a first reading. Lisa?
This is the first reading of Bill number 2758, an ordinance providing for the City of Sparks to approve a development agreement with the Washoe County School District pursuant to NRS 278.0201 for a public high school facility on a portion of Wild Creek Golf Course generally located north of McCarran Boulevard and east of Sullivan Lane in Sparks, Nevada.
Okay, this is the first reading of Bill 2758, an ordinance providing for the City of Sparks to approve a development agreement with the Washoe County School District pursuant to NRS 278.0201 for a public high school facility on a portion of Wild Creek Golf Course generally located of McCarran Boulevard and east of Sullivan Lane in Sparks, Nevada. Public hearing for this bill for its consideration and possible approval will be held at the regular city council meeting scheduled for Tuesday, May the 28th, 2019. Okay, we'll move on to 10.1. Public hearing, consideration, discussion, and possible action regarding the possible revocation of marijuana cultivation and production business licenses currently held by NNV Operations 1 Incorporated DBA Silver State Trading. Brandon, welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Brandon Sendall, Assistant City Attorney for the record. This council previously heard an agenda item regarding NNV Operations 1 Inc. doing business as Silver State Trading. I'll just refer to them as Silver State Trading throughout. But this council heard an... Yes, here, let me... All right. But this council previously heard an item addressing Silver State Trading on February 19th, at which it directed the city manager's office and the city attorney's office to institute proceedings to consider whether to revoke Silver State Trading's production and cultivation business licenses. That procedure is governed by Sparks Municipal Code 580-110. It's essentially a two-part process. First, the council considers whether to even start the proceedings. That's what happened on February 25th. And then after a complaint and an answer are exchanged, then there's this public hearing. So, as I mentioned, a formal complaint was sent to Silver State Trading, and Silver State Trading submitted an answer on March 21st. Both the complaint and the answer are in your packet items. So just a reminder of what brought us here. It was in July and August of 2018, Silver State Trading lowered the amount that it reported as gross receipts based on a legal argument that they only had to account for sales to dispensaries located in the city of Sparks. City staff disagreed, and after a few months of discussion, a letter was sent by Mr. Driscoll, and in response to that, it was on October 30th of 2018, Silver State, or excuse me, October 31st, I just want to make sure I get the dates right, agreed via email that its prior interpretation was incorrect and that they owed more in gross receipts than they had previously reported and paid for. Based on that, Silver State Trading agreed to submit quarterly amended filings for its second and third quarter of 2018 business license statements. Essentially, they self-report what their gross receipts are for the quarter and pay their business license fees based on that quarterly gross receipts amount. So Silver State Trading agreed to submit amended second and third quarter of 2018 reports and pay all of the outstanding fees that were owed by the end of November of 2018, including all late fees. And that was done. Silver State paid for both of those, and in addition, at the time agreed that any future payments would be on time and paid in full. Then in January of 2019, the city's business licensing office was calling all of the marijuana-related businesses to set up times to pay quarterly license fees. This is because it requires a lot of coordination between the business licensing office, SPD for transportation of the money. And when the business licensing office contacted Silver State Trading, they were told that Silver State Trading would be unable to pay by the January 30th, 2019 deadline. Just so you know, John Sutton, the CEO of Silver State Trading, and the CFO, Will Hitchcock, are here today, and I believe from our conversations they're going to be addressing that January 30th deadline. But in light of the non-payment by the January 30th, 2019 deadline, the city manager informed Silver State Trading that he was going to be taking the matter before the city council because that's what's required under city code. This isn't a situation where city staff can revoke a license. It's placed before the city council for decision. And that's when it was brought before you, and you directed both the city manager's office and city attorney's office to start the complaint and answer proceedings. When the city manager sent that letter, that was on February 1st, that same day, Mr. Sutton contacted the city manager, and as of it was the week of February 4th, was trying to set up a time to pay the outstanding fees that were late, and Silver State Trading wasn't able to pay until February 12th, but that was mainly due to scheduling issues. They were making themselves available as of the week of February 4th. Additionally, since this has happened, Silver State Trading has since paid its first quarter of 2019 business license fees. Those were due on April 30th, and those were paid in full. So in summary, Silver State Trading is now current on all of its quarterly business license fee obligations, including all late fees, but was late in paying for the second, third, and fourth quarter of 2018, which is why this matter is before you. I don't want to summarize the answer too much and put words in anybody's mouth, but you have the answer to the city's complaint before you, and Mr. Sutton has essentially said that he agrees with the city's version of the factual history, the payment history, and that Silver State Trading has instituted a new escrow process to ensure that this won't happen again, and has acknowledged the prior oversight, but requests that the city council consider the length of time that they've been operating, and that they have caught up and are fully paid at the present time. So just to give you a little more of a legal framework on what you're looking for, pursuant to SMC 8100, a marijuana establishment license may be revoked by the city council if it appears to a majority of its members that the licensee or an employee has A, failed to pay any license fee in advance, or B, refused or neglected to comply with any of the provisions of Chapter 580. That's the section dealing with licensing of marijuana-related entities. So the issue before the city council right now is, after consideration of the staff report and the complaint and the answer that you have with you, and any statements made here, whether the council believes Silver State Trading's past payment history is sufficient grounds to warrant revocation of their business license, 2 business licenses. With that, I'm available to answer any questions. And I believe
Okay, I'm
this-
gonna hold the questions till after public comment. So I'll open up the public comment period. Anybody in the audience wishing to speak this time, please fill out a card. And our speaker is John Sutton. Come on down, John. Welcome.
Hello. Honorable Mayor, honorable council people, thank you very much. I wish under better circumstances I was here again, though I will tell you we've sat through the entire meeting twice. It's very interesting to see the inner workings of the city of Sparks, and I appreciate it. Number one, I want to call out that we've had a valid business license in good standing from January 2016 until now for 3 years. We have paid all fees, all taxes, all penalties as required. Ultimately have not had a single regulatory complaint against our entity from either the Department of Taxation, the Marijuana Enforcement Agency, or any regulatory enforcement agency underneath the city of Sparks. The Q2, Q3 matter that I thought Brandon addressed ably was primarily some ambiguity that exists across my industry in the state of Nevada, which is this. There is a great deal of uncertainty in terms of The 3% that goes to the city of Sparks is the maximum cap under IRS and NAC NRS 453A that we can be taxed or feed against top line or gross receipts. The ambiguity around how this is being handled across the state of Nevada and is even being questioned by the Department of Taxation is it 3% to the city of Sparks? If we're paying fees or taxes in other jurisdictions, then according to the regulatory code, that should be subtracted from the 3% that the city of Sparks is receiving. That was the ambiguity that caused my hesitancy as the CEO and founder to cover the taxes in 2018. When we went down the path of working with Steve Driscoll and a great man that I enjoyed working with, and legal, we found that the city of Sparks was correct in assessing 3%. Though I, as the CEO, know we are paying fees in other jurisdictions as well, I capitulated and we brought our account current. I apologize for the amount of hours that the city of Sparks needed to spend researching and working with us. Once we landed on an agreement, we brought all fees, taxes, and penalties current. In Q1, I want to just ask a question right now. And of course, I don't expect that level of interaction. But I'm going to assume everyone that I'm looking at right now has a cell phone. Business did exist, and you can tell by my graying beard that I know this, prior to having cell phones. You remember landlines. So we think about the convenience of a cell phone, or we heard around the transportation district, around the convenience of having a car. Now I'm going to ask this question. Imagine if you had no access to banking. All these millions of dollars we've discussed today, imagine no banking whatsoever. Right now in the state of Nevada, my entity is not allowed to have a bank account. All the transactions that we do, from paying the city of Sparks, which Brandon mentioned takes time because the police need to be here to take my cash, imagine that replicated across every transaction I perpetrate with 70 employees across this jurisdiction. Now, what happened, of course, at the end of January 2019 for Q4 is I'm not even allowed to collect my own proceeds from transactions in this industry. So ultimately what transpired was the group that does collect for us did not show up on time for us to actually make the appointment on January 31st or January 30th, I'll defer to Brandon, as it relates to paying our fees. And guess what? Without a bank account, I can't write a check. So I have to find a way to get a suitcase filled with cash to the city of Sparks. And guess what? I found like missing your cell phone, and everyone's lost their cell phone, by the way. It's not easy to get cash here. So ultimately, within 48 hours of that miss, I was able to secure the cash that was owed to us in Southern Nevada. And I called Steve Driscoll that Friday, the day after our missed appointment, to state I can get the cash here on Monday or Tuesday. Without a bank account, it is nearly impossible to transact business. The reason that I do not have a bank account is because of the federal overhang from Schedule 1 and the fact that the FDIC will not insure banks doing transactions in what Nevada electorate has decided is a legal business in this state. And yet I still have to, when I go pay my Nevada energy bill, which averages $30,000 in the city a month, is I have to send 10 of my employees to get $3,000 in money orders each, costing me $350, and then taking money orders to pay Nevada Energy. I'm not complaining about this. When I consciously left Silicon Valley because of my disabled child to start this business, I knew there would be encumbrances. And to some extent, I still see it as a barrier to entry for competitors. But the reality is, when I have a miss in Las Vegas from a collection standpoint, even though I personally could have wired the funds, I have no way to wire the funds to my business. So ultimately, I was prevented by the regulatory code, not by a lack of capital, to actually provide your taxes that day. And I apologize. I apologize. What we've done since is implement a completely different process to remunerate the city of Sparks for your fees, where I am aggregating capital on a monthly basis in a holding company I established for this purpose. In the future, I'll be able to write a check to the city of Sparks. It's not based on my entity here, Silver State Trading. But the reality is having needed to now go through this process has taught me many lessons. And I, again, apologize for the amount of hours you've had to allocate towards this. I'll call out in closing that we are 100% current on all our fees. I made the decision that day on January 30th, a Thursday of 2019, because the transport group that needed to bring me money could not do that day. I made a very tough decision as the CEO of a company. That decision was to pay my 70 employees, averaging $15 per hour, their salaries, and allow myself to be exposed to going through this process by waiting 48 hours to have the cash to cover you, because that's how long it took for me to get it and translate it into a nearby facility where I could bring it in. So again, for my employees, I won't be apologetic for making that decision that day. For the aggravation I brought to the city of Sparks when I am currently current and have been for 3 years, again, I apologize. So with that being stated, I do appreciate your time always. I hope not to see you again in the immediate term, but if I do, I hope it's something that's gregarious and social, focused on social activity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Anybody else in the audience wish to speak at this time? Seeing none, we bring it back to the council. Brandon, you want to come up? Any questions or comments? Ms. Bybee.
The problem that I have is that it wasn't just one payment that was missed, it was 3. The city, when we missed, trying to clarify with Silver State how much they owed and their misunderstanding of what they owed the city on the licensing fees. We have other marijuana establishments in the city that have not had the same problem, so I have a little bit of an issue with that. But the fact that we had the 2 quarters that were late clarified, they found, Silver State finding that we were correct. And it's upon us to make sure legally, it's a new industry, so there's a lot of questions, a lot of things, moving parts right now, I understand that. But when it was clear that the city was correct, and in the fall, all monies were repaid to the city, November 30th in our packet here shows that Silver State agreed at that time with the city manager that they made payment to catch up on the taxes or the business fees, and that they would, moving forward, it would be on time, and we were done. You know, basically, the agreement to pay on time happened November 30th, and then here we find ourselves January 30th in the same situation. So it's hard for me to what prevents us from every quarter in April, we're good to go. But I don't think with any business, whether it's marijuana or anything else, the City of Sparks staff and management should have to keep, spending additional staff time to simply collect the revenues that are due to the city. And so for me, I have a hard time, I know, revoking a business license. I don't take lightly at all. I don't know, and I would probably refer to you and or to Mr. Adams on if the motion on revoking the license, if we did not revoke the license at this time, can we make I would like to require that if a payment is late, we receive another late payment or failure to pay, that it would happen at that time. And I don't know if I'm legally, if that's permissible or not. That's kind of where I'm feeling that if we didn't revoke today, but we had another late payment or failure to meet the terms of our code, it could happen at that time. So, Mr. Adams or Brandon, can you advise me?
Do you have a time period that you'd be comfortable with? In other words, holding your decision in abeyance today, pending another review in 6 months, 12 months, and if nothing has happened at that time?
The only thing with that is there's a nuance in the city code in this section that requires city council decision within 10 days of the hearing.
In that case,
Yeah.
But I do think if the council were to not revoke, it could be with instructions to city staff that if there's a missed payment in the future with a request that that be brought back before the council for consideration again.
So it would be brought back to us again. We could not make a motion today that if another payment was late, that the revocation could happen at that point in time.
He could waive his rights under that and agree to that, couldn't he?
Suppose, yes, yeah.
I mean, I'm just asking you, I mean, you know, you could, yeah, all right. Would you be willing to waive your right to a city council decision within 10 days pending, how long would you want? In other words, you're entitled to you are entitled to a decision essentially today. And Councilwoman Bybee is saying, look, rather than having to go through all of this again in the event that you don't miss the payment, we'd put you on probation for, say, a year. Okay, so as long as you don't make any payments with, as long as you make all your payments timely within a year, then we would bring the matter back to the city council, and we could give you a decision that you're entitled to today in a year. Does that make sense?
Sure, come on down.
Yeah, because we need you on the record.
So just to recapitulate, and thank you for your willingness to consider my business as a good standing business, though in an interesting and nascent industry in the city of Sparks. And thank you, Councilman Bybee, for considering continuing to keep my 70 employees working here at about 2x minimum wage. I appreciate that. If I understand clearly what's being asked, and I appreciate that clarity, Mr. Adams, as it relates to this, basically you're stating, am I comfortable seeing if we perform per my commitment over a period of time, a year, and if not, we wouldn't have to go through this two-pronged process once again, which you've helped me to understand. So ultimately then you could revoke my license without necessarily tying up the city resources to make that decision. But if I, on the corollary, make my payments in a timely manner, I'm not in jeopardy unless something ridiculous happens that I can't predict at this point. Is that correct?
I guess, yes, I'm looking for the mechanism on if we do not revoke today, still having the authority to, if the business licensing fees are not paid again, I don't want to keep coming back and forth, and I don't want our legal team, I don't want our staff to have to do that, but I understand, and yet, so having a mechanism that whether it's probation or how we legally state this, that whether, if your next quarter fees were late, would that be grounds for an immediate revocation, or would we have to come back to council to do that? Or can we put it in the language that if payments are late, business license payments are late, here, moving forward, that would constitute a revocation of the license?
Yeah, under the language of the code, no, but if Mr. Sutton or Silver State Trading were willing to waive that procedure, then I believe yes.
So that's what we're looking for you to put that on the record, that you would be willing to waive that procedure.
And just to be clear, Councilwoman Bybee, are you saying that staff would have the authority to revoke, or that it would just be brought up to council one time?
Yeah, I think you should bring it back. You're going to come back one way or the other. Either at the end of the year, if you've paid everything, it comes back to the city council. City council can then say, hey, you've paid, you performed all the condition of your probation, we're not going to revoke. Or it could come back prior to that. If you miss a payment, we bring it back to the city council and say, hey, he was put on probation, he missed a payment. It's up to you now to decide whether or not to revoke or not.
Okay, and I'm comfortable with that setup, not an automatic, but it coming back to council again for that decision, either upon missing a payment or as we move forward, what our attorney just recommended. So I'm comfortable with that.
Okay, so we're gonna move on here. Is that a yes?
I'm assuming that I would receive that verbiage in writing at some juncture.
Oh,
You
Mr.
know.
Sindall will get that right to you.
I do appreciate that. And I wasn't trying to be punctilious, just understanding. I'm comfortable speculating on myself. I wouldn't have left Silicon Valley to actually start a very speculative cannabis business if I wasn't comfortable trusting in myself. So as the CEO, unless I'm removed for some reason, I would state that I'm comfortable with the terms, Councilman Bybee, of the agreement that we just detailed with Mr. Adams. I would say yes, that I'm willing to come back in a year and perform as you expect me to, and realize there would be risk if I do not. I'm comfortable with the agreement as defined.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sutton.
As another point, this obligation, this probation will inure to any subsequent owner of the business or
And-
any subsequent
yes.
CEO.
And I appreciate that, Mr. Adams.
Sure.
And that's why I used, current CEO. I think that they find me very favorably, and I am one of the larger owners of the business, but as we know, things change.
And I think the legislature's trying to create a marijuana bank for you, too.
I do hope so. So thank you for hearing me out, and, I would love to have any other questions or comments. If people want to reach out to me personally, I did fill out a speaker's forum. There is a lot of challenges that this industry is facing, but on the other hand, it is employing people in the city of Sparks, and I believe will bring a net good over time. So thank you very much for
Thank
your
you,
time
Mr. Sutton.
today.
Mr. Anderson, you can go now. Thank you.
Actually, thank you for your employment. We appreciate you keeping Sparks business people or homeowners in their place of residence and all that. I appreciate that. My concern is a lot like Councilman Bybee's. I mean, we've been going at this for over 6 months now, and I just don't want to see that process continue on. So with what you said, I'm feeling more comfortable there. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Dare.
So,
I'm sorry, Mr. Abbott first.
go ahead.
My question is, how do we, 2016 to 2018, you were paying what you were supposed to be paying, correct? And then what changed?
Two things. So I suppose everyone in the room, especially on the council, has dealt with an attorney where they wish they had not necessarily capitulated to their opinion. The reality is, a new attorney and a new CFO led to a perceptual change of the code as it is. And I would state, Councilman Abbott, that still at this juncture, what we are discussing in terms of a municipality being able to carve out 3% of gross receipts as a fee or a tax is being discussed across the state right now. I'm not arguing it, but the fact is that the reality is, if, according to NRS 453A, if I am paying fees or taxes in other jurisdictions, then my cap is 3%. So in effect, I'm paying fees and taxes in other jurisdictions.
Mr.
and-
Sutton, we're not arguing that right now.
Okay.
We're just talking about the restriction we're putting on your compliance.
Yes.
Okay, so I would ask you to take your seat and then direct all your questions to Brandon, if you would.
Yeah, okay, no problem.
Mr. Dare.
So my big question that comes, and this goes to any of our businesses, is that if there's a problem and someone decides that they have better answers than our staff, I would ask in the future that they continue to pay their taxes and what is due and the fees that are due, and then come back afterwards and say, hey, I don't think I should pay that, and we can talk about that if there's changes. And so, to me, they did this backwards, and doing that and doing this backwards is where my problem comes. I get that things happen. I'm not here to beat somebody up because something happened late or this happened or that, but I do think, and this needs to be spoken really clear to any industry, is you don't get to go out and introduce your own idea of what should happen for our city. That is what we get to do, and then you get to come back afterwards. So don't ever stop paying your taxes or the fees or the things that are due. So I just want to put that on the record because I think that that's really if I get to the crux of the problem here, it wasn't a late fee that's the problem. It was a decision made to not follow and to kind of see what envelope could be pushed is what I feel. And so I'm comfortable with I like the idea that there's a probation in place personally. I think that helps. And that's to anybody. That's not to beat up on one person or one business, but I think it's a wise move and it keeps everybody kind of intact and honest and moving in the right direction.
Okay, Mr. Lawson.
So it's been brought to my attention that there's other companies out there that are interpreting the law themselves also and how much they should pay us. Now, this is an example that needs to be set that we don't play around with this kind of stuff. You know, if you decide that you're not going to pay on one part of your business or you're going to pay on this side and not this side, apparently there's companies out there doing that in the marijuana business. So we'll be looking at auditing those companies in the future to get this straightened out. I'm okay with it. I never want to take any business license. I'm 100% in favor of that. But we don't have any problem with anyone else at this point that we know of for sure. That's what I've heard is basically rumor, so it doesn't really matter until we can prove something. But if we find that out, I will tell you that I'll be more likely to revoke that license than I will for an interpretation. I can see where you come, but I also know that when I have an interpretation with the IRS, I still pay 100% of my bill, and we argue about it on, with the IRS over months and months and months until they finally prove that they're correct, and I end up having to pay the whole amount anyways. So that's the way it should have been done. That's the way it should have been handled. I'm disappointed that we're having some interpretation of what the state law is, and I want to nip it in the bud, and I don't want to have this conversation with several other businesses, but we will find out if these other businesses have interpreted their amount they need to pay and how they pay the city of Sparks.
Mr. Adams.
I was just going to point out that to Councilman Dare and Councilman Lawson's point, Nevada law is pretty clear on this. If you have an argument about the taxes that you owe, you pay first and then challenge later. So Councilman Lawson's point is well taken.
Okay. All right, are there any more questions or comments? Okay, we may need some help on structuring this motion. So who would like to make a motion? Ms. Bybee.
Okay, and if the attorneys can help me here. I move at this time not to revoke the business license for Silver State, but to, with the understanding, there will be a 1-year period of probation to ensure that payments are made during that year, and that should failure to make the business fee payments happen during the year of probation, it will come back to the council for a possible revocation of the license at that time.
Mr. Adams, does that work?
I would simply add that I would predicate the motion with something along the lines of based upon the voluntary waiver of rights under whatever SMC, the 10 days.
Oh, yes, SMC, Chapter 580-110.
Do you want to add that to your motion?
Yeah, if we can add that to the motion. And Mr. Adams, do we need to add that 1 year from now, at the conclusion of the probation, we would need the Silver State to come before us again to make a determination if the probation continues, or we can make a decision 1 year from now?
I think that
Is that necessary?
what you could say is this matter will be revisited 1 year from today.
Okay.
And at which time the council will take into account all the facts and circumstances surrounding the payment history of Silver State. And at that time, we'll make an ultimate decision.
Okay. I would add that to the motion, that we revisit this in 1 year and make a determination at that time or sooner if there is failure to receive payment during that one-year probation.
The council reserves the right to bring this matter back pending non-payment of
Timely fees.
the business license fees by Silver State.
Okay, we'll add that to the motion also.
Okay, we have a long motion.
Yeah, long
Everybody
motion.
understand the motion? Mr. Cruz?
Mayor Smith, I might ask that we consider taking about a 5-minute recess so that we can give our attorneys time to kind of write down everything that we've put on the table here now, so that we have the opportunity to read it, make sure we've got everything in there that we wanted in there, so that we don't watch this tape tomorrow and realize we missed a step in that
And what
motion.
I would ask is that after Brandon and I have had an opportunity to meet, that we meet with Silver State and explain the motion to him and
Okay.
understand that he
Okay.
agrees to it,
Okay.
and understands it. How's that sound?
Okay, we'll take a 15-minute recess. That gives you time to do everything you need to do. Be back at, what time is it? 4:30. Chet, you guys done? We're gonna-
Now,
they'll-
can
they'll
I
give-
read-
they-
can I
they-
read the
yeah,
writing?
yeah, they'll give you a written one. Brandon, would you give that motion to her so she can read it?
Better let him read it and go, yeah.
Yeah,
I agree.
what he said. Okay, I'll call the meeting back to order, please. You want him to read it?
Huh? Let me see. I think I'm okay. I'll ask you if I need help.
Okay. So we're gonna redo the motion according to our attorney, so Ms. Bybee.
Okay, I would like to make a motion based upon Silver State Trading's knowing and voluntary waiver of the rights to an order pursuant to Sparks Municipal Code 5-80-110. I move to decline to revoke the Silver State Trading's cultivation and production business licenses. The city council shall hold this matter in abeyance for 12 months, during which time Silver State Trading agrees to make all business licensing payments in full and on time, and the city council reserves the right to re-agendize this matter at any time prior to the expiration of the 12-month period without going through the complaint and answer process described in 5-80-110A-C. In the event that Silver State Trading fails to timely and fully pay any business license fees to the city of Sparks.
Okay, we have a motion. Does everybody understand the motion? Okay, looking for a second. Mr. Dare.
I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Mr. Sutton. Okay, we'll move on to 10.2, public hearing. Consideration and possible approval of the program year 5, fiscal year 2019-2020 Community Development Block Grant and Home Consortium Annual Action Plan for submittal. Welcome, George.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council, George Graham, Housing Specialist for the record. Today I will be presenting to staff's recommendation for the City Council's consideration and approval to submit the CDBG grant application to HUD Annual Action Plan 5, fiscal year 2019-20. The City of Sparks is an entitlement community that receives a direct allocation of community development block grant funds and from the Department of HUD. We are required to submit an annual action plan and in accordance with the consolidated plan that we're currently under. This annual action plan constitutes the fifth and final year of the consolidated plan that ends in 2019. Staff will begin development of a new 5-year consolidated plan in January 2020 and anticipate presenting before City Council in May 2020, the new consolidated 5-year plan. The annual action plan activities involve City of Sparks share contribution, supporting operations of the Community Assistance Center, and as well as continuum of care, strategy, strategic plan, fair housing initiatives and activities, as well as pedestrian improvements and the pedestrian improvements. The pedestrian improvement portion is a supplement to Ms. Amber Sosa, our transportation manager, please, her project, and that will be presented on the 28th of this month. So the CDBG allocation supplements that plan and complements that plan. The housing rehabilitation program would also be addressed under this application. And the housing rehabilitation program and emergency repair grant program is reinvestment back into the community funding that has been paid back to the city, as well as new grant funding being reinvested back into the community. So in closing, I recommend City Council's approval of the annual action plan for 2019-20. And I would like to address any questions at this time.
Thank you, George. Any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, looking for a motion. Mr. Dare.
Good job, George.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, this is a public hearing. Let me get back to that. Hold your
Yes,
thoughts
sir.
there. This is a public hearing. I'll open it up to the public. Anybody in the public wishing to speak at this time? Being no one, bring it back to the council for action. Mr. Dare.
Thank you, George. I move to approve the program year 5, fiscal year 2019 to 2020, Community Development Block Grant and Home Consortium Annual Action Plan for submittal to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Okay, we have a motion, looking for a second. Mr. Abbott.
I will second that.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thank you, George.
Thank you all.
Okay, 10.3, second reading, public hearing, discussion and possible adoption of Bill 2757, an ordinance amending Chapter 5.77 of the Sparks Municipal Code to amend sidewalk cafes, revise one definition and add a new definition, add a section to establish regulations for pour stations during special events and other matters properly related to thereto. Cheryl, welcome.
Good afternoon, thank you. Cheryl Lighting on behalf of the City Attorney's Office, and I'm also here on behalf of Mr. Ornelas, presenting Bill 2757, which is an ordinance amending Chapter 5.77 of the Sparks Municipal Code. These proposed amendments revise and clarify regulations regarding permits for the sidewalk cafes in the public right-of-way, including standards for placement and demarcation of sidewalk cafes and service of alcoholic beverages within the sidewalk cafe areas. Primarily, the proposed changes are changing the definition of, or adding a definition of bar and lounge and pour station under section 5.77.020, adding a definition of a bar in combination with the changes to 5.77040 clarifies that bars are eligible to obtain sidewalk cafe permits. Without this change, it is ambiguous as to whether or not a bar is eligible to have a sidewalk cafe permit. So we are looking to revise 5.77040 to allow sidewalk cafe to be placed within 10 feet of an indoor restaurant or bar. That is going to accurately reflect what is taking place now. The way the code currently exists is that it's required to be about right up to the building, which can't happen in certain circumstances, so we're giving people a 10-foot leeway there. This, as I said, this proposed change would accommodate businesses located directly adjacent to the pedestrian paths or where the circumstances prevent the sidewalk from being situated directly adjacent to the bar or restaurant. We're also proposing changing the sidewalk size that must be maintained for pedestrian traffic from 6 to 8 feet to accommodate ADA requirements. Also, we are asking to revise 5.77060 to clarify requirements for physical delineation of sidewalk cafe areas, permit pour stations within sidewalk cafes during special events with the authorization of the event producer. This was a change that we did work on with the bars and the restaurants on downtown. This was a change they requested. Also, we're clarifying that violations of 5.77060 may be grounds for revocation of a business liquor license. And finally, we're looking to revise the administrative provisions of 5.77100, which allows the city manager or his designee to take or to sign off on the permits. So those are the changes we're proposing, and I can answer any questions.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, Mr. Dare.
I do have a question, or just on the EF here on 5.77.060. I just want to make sure that that's been really strongly communicated in lieu of people interpreting what they would like. I think you wrote it out very clearly, but do all the bars know that they have to be a part of the event producer? I know that a lot of them came to the meeting. Did all of them come to the meeting? Do we know?
I believe there was only 2 that were not at the meeting, and those have been subsequently contacted by Francine Berge. I was on the email string, so I know that those communications took place. And yes, we had a very long conversation about this specific provision of the SMC.
I think it's fantastic. I think it's very important that's in there. I just know that and I like F that says, and if you do not, because some of those, we've seen down there some different things where there's a few players who don't want to play correctly, and we just want to make sure that they understand the ramifications of not playing correctly ahead of time.
Well, we are hopeful that with allowing them, legitimizing basically the pour stations, that they occur within the parameters of their outdoor cafe permit, so that that will alleviate any further problems going forward. And I know Ms. Berge has had conversations with the event producers, and it's my understanding everybody understands how we're going to go forward with this.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll open up to the public. Anybody in the public wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for action. Looking for a motion. Mr. Abbott.
Yeah, I'll shoot. I move to adopt Bill 2757, amending Chapter 5.77 of the Sparks Municipal Code to amend sidewalk cafes, revise one definition, add a new definition, add a section to establish regulations for pour stations during special events and other matters properly relating thereto.
Okay, we have a motion. Looking for a second. Mr. Anderson.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thanks, Cheryl. Okay, 10.4. This is a second reading. Public hearing and discussion and possible adoption, of Bill number 2756, an ordinance amending Title 12 of the Sparks Municipal Code by adding Chapter 12.42.020 to address the construction, installation, and operation of small wireless facilities within the city right-of-way and providing other matters. Brandon, back again.
Long time no see.
I know.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Brandon Sendall, Assistant City Attorney. With this agenda item, staff is proposing adoption of an additional section to Title 12 of the Sparks Municipal Code to add regulations addressing the construction, installation, and operation of small wireless facilities is a more technical term. They're often known as small cells. And being that this item, as opposed to the next item you are considering, is Title 12. This addresses small cells within the right-of-way. The next item on the agenda will address similar recommended code amendments to Title 20 for small cell and private property. So just for background, a small cell is a structure. It's usually placed on a light pole or a traffic light or some other infrastructure, usually about 30 to 40 feet high. And this is as opposed to the traditional big macro towers that are about 90 feet high, sometimes even taller. And the basic idea behind the rollout of small cell is that they're able to go into higher traffic areas where the carriers need additional capacity. It can cover some coverage gaps, but essentially it's to increase the capacity of the existing wireless networks. It's anticipated to help with, obviously, the 5G is in the news a lot lately. This is how that is supposed to roll out, help with autonomous vehicles, virtual reality, just other applications with expanding technology that require more speed and capacity. So wireless carriers are starting to deploy small cells. Thank you. And these pictures are actually old. The designs have improved a lot. I thought Matt Yurgovich from AT&T was going to be here. He has updated pictures that are much cleaner and sleeker in design. But So far, the city of Sparks hasn't received any formal applications to deploy any small cells, but staff has been talking with Verizon, AT&T, Extenet for the last 6 months or so, and we anticipate that some applications will be coming shortly. So for more of the legal background, the FCC issued an order in late 2018 that requires municipalities to allow for the deployment of small cells within certain parameters. But it essentially shortened the city's deadline or shot clock to review and either approve or deny. Limited the amount that municipalities can charge for the use of the right-of-way, and limited certain aesthetic standards. We can still have some aesthetic standards, but they have to be specific enough without being too specific and limiting technological advancement. So it's been difficult, and there's been a lot of negotiation between city staff and the wireless providers on this. The FCC has denied a request to stay its order, so there are appeals currently at the FCC and the Ninth Circuit, but right now that order is law. So the staff has gone forward with AT&T, Verizon, and Extenet to address the FCC's order. The proposed addition reflects stakeholder input. We've had probably close to 10 meetings with all the different carriers on this. And we believe that the proposed ordinance addresses that stakeholder input. And just as a side note, building permits and all other street cut and encroachment permits will still be required here. So as far as physical improvements in the right-of-way, it will still be going through the same building permit process. So there is city staff review on that to ensure that these will be deployed in a safe and orderly manner. In addition, I should note that city staff is late in negotiations of a master license agreement with AT&T and Verizon. This basically is a more specific agreement that will grant AT&T or Verizon a license to use right-of-way, but it's a lot more detailed than we would want to put in city code. So we're finalizing that right now and anticipate that that'll be before you soon. So in summary, the proposed addition, it's intended to meet the recent FCC requirements imposed on municipalities while still making sure that any impacts are properly mitigated to the extent we can under the FCC order. City staff believes the adoption of the proposed addition complies with the FCC order, and in conclusion, staff is recommending approval.
Okay, questions or comments? Mr. Dare.
So I know staff has told us that we're not gonna put them on our poles because that's not part of our setup right now. They're gonna have to put up their own poles, but my question is, so does this mean that they get to go down and just put up poles wherever they want based upon the regulations that have been handed down? Or do we get to help guide and give some direction when they come? We just have to do it in a shorter amount of time. We know how our citizens get when things go in front of their house or in front of their places, and all of a sudden we're gonna have all these, I just in my mind, these poles going up that it's gonna bring some additional issues. But is that true? Do you know, do we have any say in what happens there, or do they just get to come and say there's a right-of-way there, we need a pole there, and they get to do it? How does that work?
I mean, within certain parameters, we've proposed separation requirements of 150 feet from small cell location to small cell location. That's to minimize clustering that can have certain safety impacts, especially on street corners. But the FCC order, it has hamstrung cities pretty significantly.
Okay.
And to answer your first question, it's my understanding most of the streetlight poles are not in city right-of-way. Obviously, when a carrier comes in and wants to submit an application on that, that's one of the first things that needs to be determined: who actually owns the pole, where is it located? But in my talks with the rest of city staff and engineering, the majority are actually not located in the right-of-way.
Thank you. The current cell towers.
No, the light poles.
Light
NV
poles,
Energy,
okay.
the luminaires.
So it's my understanding that they're not gonna be able to go on light poles. So they can't go on private property, they can go in city right of way. That's the only place they can place them.
No, they can go on private property as well. That's actually the next agenda item for Title 20.
Okay. Mr. Anderson?
Just have a question. If I understand it, on these style, it's pretty much like almost a line of sight. So who's going to be responsible if they put that pole there, and whether it's my tree that's growing up and over the fence, or it's the city's tree? Who's going to be responsible to make sure that's manicured in such a way or ends up coming out for them to have their access?
That's actually one issue that's being negotiated in the master license agreements right now, is future city interference based on, approval of a certain development that might block because the difference is, I don't want to get too technical, I'm only a lawyer, but 4G penetrates through matter pretty effectively. Most of us are getting 4G in here, and it's pretty clear. 5G doesn't go through walls or even trees at some point. So that is part of the need to have small cells scattered around, is for future 5G development. From what I understand, talking to the carriers, that's not in the mix in the next year or so, but I'm speculating at that point. I don't know what their plan is for that. But that very issue is being discussed right now in the master license agreements.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? I'll open it up to public. Anybody in the public want to speak at this time? Bill? Come on down.
The question I have is, are these things going to be next to homes? Because I understand that, that you could get cancer from this stuff.
We'll ask our attorney that, Bill.
Hmm?
We'll ask our attorney one of our questions.
Great. Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council. Can you answer that question, Brandon?
The proposed code requires compliance with FCC interference and frequency requirements. So essentially, the FCC has preempted that as well, and has dictated that as long as carriers operate within a certain frequency, that's deemed safe, and cities are not allowed to deny on that basis.
Interesting. Okay, any other questions or comments? Looking for a motion? Mr. Abbott.
Very good. I move to adopt Bill number 2756, an ordinance amending Title 12 of the Sparks Municipal Code by adding Chapter 12.42.020 to address the construction, installation, and operation of small business facilities within the city right-of-way.
Okay, we have a motion. Look for a second. Ms. Bivey.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thanks, Brandon. Okay, 11, planning and zoning. 11.1, second reading, public hearing, discussion, and possible action on Bill 2755, an ordinance amending section 20.03.046 wireless communication tower or antenna of the Sparks Municipal Code, revising one definition and adding a new definition within section 20.08.002, making administrative changes, adding a new section establishing regulations for small wireless communication facilities located on private property. Ms. Melby.
Good afternoon. Karen Melby, Development Service Manager. Before you today is Bill 2755, which is an ordinance amending section 20.03046, which is our wireless communication tower and antenna section of our zoning code. We also are revising one existing definition in this this bill and also proposing a new definition. The ordinance changes, as we opened the wireless section of our code, we decided that we wanted to change some other things that relate to the macro towers. So there are some changes in there. And then we added a new section, which is for the small cells on private property. So that section is following the same code that's in the Title 12, but we just put it that it applies to private property. The two definitions that we're changing, we changed the existing definition for wired communication towers and antennas, and then we also added one that defines what a small cell facility is. The FCC issued an order in 2018 requiring municipalities to deploy the small cells facilities, and that's what we are trying to do between Title 12 and Title 20 today. FCC has limitations on the aesthetics, so we do have some aesthetics in the 20 section, but it's very limited on what we've put in there. Most of my presentation was already covered, so I'm going to skip most of it. This slide I prepared to show you the difference between a macro tower and these towers here are on existing city lights that are in the right-of-way. My section of the code would be on private property. I couldn't find any small cells that were actually on private property. But we are in a different situation since most of the street lights are owned by NV Energy. And NV Energy, in discussions with them, has said that they do not want small cell facilities on their light poles or luminaires. Staff feels that it does support comprehensive plan goals, CC1, EV4, and policy EV8. Based on that, Planning Commission, because this was an amendment to Title 20, and staff are recommending approval. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Okay, questions or comments? Mr. Lawson.
Yeah, Karen, so this basically means if I want to stick one of these 30-foot poles in my front yard and I can negotiate with AT&T or Verizon and they go ahead and stick it in there.
As long as you meet the aesthetics and the spacing that are in the code, yes.
So
You'd
now
still have to go through your building permit process.
which I would assume that AT&T or Verizon would pay for that part of it, but.
Well, they would be actually constructing it.
Correct.
They would probably most likely be a lease agreement with you, and then they would construct the facility. Just like our Macro towers right now are all lease agreement with the property owner.
So wouldn't it be also true that if you have a sidewalk in front of your house, that's in the right of way, so they could actually go in that easement portion of the right of way? And they wouldn't have to put it in my front yard, they could put it next to the sidewalk and not have to negotiate with me at all? Looking for loopholes, baby.
Yeah.
So, yes, Mr. Mayor, John Martini, Assistant City Manager for you. So Councilman Lawson, we've looked at this a lot. Imagine the amount of public right-of-way that exists all over this country has now been opened up, in essence, for the benefit of private enterprise, to bring us communication technology that the rest of the world honestly is already enjoying, and we're kind of behind. So I can kind of understand the FCC giving us all a push. Now, as we look at our public right-of-way, I think you're aware, Councilman Lawson, and most of the council, we've discussed it. Typically, there's 2 more feet of right-of-way behind the sidewalk in front of everyone's home that we all put our lawns and plants in and treat it as if it's ours. Addition to that 2 feet of right-of-way, there's about 5 to 7 to 8, depending on when your final map came in, of public utility easement that our power and gas and communications are in. So there's room in all of our front yards to put these things in one way or another, either on the private side that Karen was talking about, or in the public right-of-way. We are curious to see if the carriers can come up with a design that fits in that small 2-foot section of right-of-way, because our sidewalks are 4 feet wide. We need 4 feet for ADA. It certainly can't go on the sidewalk. We know that. So to answer your question, Councilman Lawson, we've discussed this as a staff. we are rolling out these code amendments in both Title 12 and Title 20 to meet the requirements the FCC's put on us. We fully expect that as the industry comes in with these requests, we're going to learn some things. It's hard for us to anticipate actually where these are going to go. To be point, if they can find a way to build a facility that fits in that 2-foot spot, yes, they could put them in front of somebody's home. And even our code does not restrict that because we are not allowed to. It is all public right of way. So I hope that answers your question.
Just want you to be prepared, and I know Ms. Wells is in the audience from AT&T, but there is that possibility that an unscrupulous carrier could say, hey, the best spot is right there in front of your yard where you have the view of the Sierra Nevada mountains, and that's where we want to stick our post. So I think there's a lot more needs to be talked about on this and giving some of the rights. So for me, the private property rights thing is going to be rarely enforced, because if I'm a business guy, the first thing I'm going to do is take advantage of the right of way that I don't have to pay for. You know, that's been given to me by the national government.
Again, we've tried to anticipate and work with, I mean, Brandon and Karen and John Erickson have been at this for months trying to understand what the FCC put down. The two items you've already approved, the first one, which covers in the public right-of-way. This is the companion for how small cell could be deployed on private property. So we're trying to cover the range here with both.
I just see this as a can of worms, you know, because now I'm not in the small cell business, but I'm in the billboard industry, and I want to put a billboard there, and you gave rights to AT&T. I want to have my rights over here. I think there's a can of worms here that's getting ready to open up that's going to be huge. And we're in a uniquely tough position, being that we don't own the streetlights and that they're owned by NV Energy. So yeah, there's a lot of questions that come up with this for me that I'm prepared for my constituents to be calling me. Because I'll tell you what, when you put a pole in my front yard, I'm not going to be happy about it, and I don't think anyone will. And especially in the more affluent type neighborhoods. Me and Mr. Abbott live in the less affluent neighborhood, so it's not probably as big of a deal. But I will guarantee you, in Wingfield Springs, you put a pole in someone's front yard, they're not going to be very happy. So anyways, just my 2 cents worth. I know this is something that's been handed down from the federal government, and we don't really have much choice in this. So I want my objections and concerns on the record.
Okay, Ms. Bybee.
I just wanted to say I appreciate the staff. We really are handcuffed, and this issue on the on 5G on the cell towers came up at the National League of Cities annual conference back in DC, and was a topic of the conversation of what imposing the rights, the FCC, you know, taking away local jurisdictions' ability. And I appreciate staff at least trying to address the best we can in setting up, both on private and our right-of-way, public right-of-way and private land, how we're going to address this. And I agree, I think as 5G comes and as it becomes a reality, there'll be probably a lot more things we're looking at, but I appreciate at least a start for us to kind of protect what the city can and can't do, and setting some of our own, to the best of our ability, considering what the FCC has given us. So thank you.
Okay, any more questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll open up to the public. Anybody in the public wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for action. Looking for a motion. Mr. Anderson.
Before I make a motion, I just want to echo what's already been said. I would like to think our carriers will be kind enough not to burden the private groups and public with putting them in horrible places like someone's front yard. But with that being said, we are bound here, and we're trying to do the best that we can. Again, I appreciate staff for the work that you've done here. With that being said, I move to adopt Bill 2755, amending Section 20.03.046, wireless communication tower or antenna of the Sparks Municipal Code, revising one definition, adding a new definition within Section 20.08.002, making administrative changes, adding a new section, establishing regulations for small wireless communication facilities located on private property, and providing other matters properly relating thereto.
Okay, we have a motion. Looking for a second. Ms. Bybee?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Lawson, did you want to say something?
I want to say my tablet went out.
Oh,
I can vote.
okay.
Oh, there we go.
His millennial son's got him.
That's right.
That's why
Okay.
he's here.
So happy to have.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
It was good.
Okay.
Now wants the power up.
It passes unanimously. Thank you, Karen.
That's it.
Okay, moving on. I'm going to open up the public comment period. Anybody in the audience wishing to speak at this time? Bill, come on down.
I really don't accept this power poles, because does it mean I could put three of them? Since there's three companies involved, could I put three of them on my lot at one time?
No,
No.
no.
Okay. Okay, good, all right. I don't know, the Vistas turned one down. They were gonna earn $18,000 a year. They had it in a spot where it was sort of away from the homes, but because of the cancer scare, we didn't do it. So I just want you to know, we're playing with fire here.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council. Comments from the city council, city manager? Anybody? Okay, without objection, we are adjourned.